Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, guys, what is up? Welcome to episode number 312 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, May the 16th, 2026. My name is Jeremy Lee. Guys, we have a fun show, lots of announcements. But before we get started, a few quick supportive statements for the ones who support us here on Sports Cards Live. Fanatics Weekly Auction Ending Watch Party is back tomorrow night here on the channel. Join me for that. And the premiere show with Adam Gray is coming at you this Thursday night here on the channel. If you're looking to sell a vintage collection, Leighton Sheldon of Just Collect does offer competitive and transparent valuation and payment processes. Would love to speak with you. Email him at leighton@justcollect.com. And guys, auctionwire.ai, now a proud sponsor here of the show. Use promo code SCL for 60 days of a free trial. Auctionwire.ai. Mint Inc., guys. Mint Inc. delivers the ultimate hobby experience. 2 stores in the greater Toronto area. Buying collections 7 days a week. There is a promo code in the description below. 5% off your first purchase. Shop online anytime with worldwide shipping. Mint Inc., where collecting comes to life. And guys, the Front Row Card Show is in Pasadena next weekend, May 23rd and 24th, with a mind-numbing 770 tables. Visit frontrowcardshow.com for more show dates and locations. And guys, grading is expensive. It ties up your time, your money, and your assets. Get it right with Mr. Minty, offering a full line of 100% substance-free pre-grading supplies, grade prep, evaluation services, and concierge drop-off and pickup for PSA and BGS submissions, all designed to help collectors save time and money in the expensive grading process. You can meet Mr. Minty in person at shows around the world. For more information, go to mrminty.com. Save 25% off products using promo code SCL25. Happy collecting and keep it minty. And guys, check out Chronosio, AI-powered collection assistant that allows boxes and boxes of cards to be scanned, documented, and listed for sale online in just minutes. It works with sports cards, TCG, slabs, raw, all of it. 2 bundles available on Walmart.com, eBay, and Amazon, as well as certain hobby stores. And they offer a one-on-one enablement session that really does set them apart. And guys, the Collector Investor Auction, CIA Auctions, is ending tomorrow. Check it out. Lots of great items. Check out the episode I did this past week here on the channel, featuring several of the items. I was doing some live bidding as well. This is their May 26th auction, and it does end tomorrow, May the 17th. And you can go to the website, register to bid, and check out their upcoming auctions as well. But if you want to sell your cards on eBay, you want to skip the hassle, reach out to me directly. I will help you get your cards listed on eBay with Slab Sharks. You can reach me at jeremy@slabsharks.com. And guys, this episode is also brought to you by Upper Deck, the Sport Card Expo, Inferno Red Technologies, ComC, and Card Ladder, with an affiliate link in the video description below. And this show is also available on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow for free. Leave a rating or review. If you like the content or you don't, leave a rating or review. It's all good. And a huge thank you, as always, to all of our loyal viewers and podcast listeners. If you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe. And as always, your questions and comments are in play. So please help me, and let's bring out Mr. David Chase. What's up, Mr. Power Broker? How are you?
Oh, there he is, Jeremy Lee. Anything exciting happening with you, sir? How are you doing?
I mentioned just a minute ago, we have a couple of fun little announcements. We got the chat is filled up already. Welcome. If you're watching on Instagram, come on over to YouTube. That's where the action is at. But let's dive right in. David Chase. Yeah, some exciting news was announced today by my good friends from the Sports Card Clubhouse Network. And now I can call them my good partners from the partners and friends on the Sports Card Clubhouse Network. So actually, we just so happen to have a couple of them here in the green room. let's bring them on for a quick little hello. And they're just here for a short time tonight, guys. But please welcome my good friend, Greg Miller and Adam, Splendid Sports. What's up, fellas? Welcome to Sports Cards Live, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, this is a great day. A great day for all of us. Well,
I'm really honored. I'm flattered. I'm excited. I'm just really I'm stoked for this new involvement I have with you guys over on the Sports Card Clubhouse. And I mean, I've had you on the show, Greg. We've talked about it. Adam, first time on Sports Cards Live. Better late than never. We'll have you back again, my friend. But I'm pumped. And just so people have an understanding of what the Sports Card Clubhouse is, if you're not familiar, I'm sure many of you are, but here is the website, the Sports Card Clubhouse. I guess on this huge announcement, breaking news, that was adding me to the team. And I guess eventually my face will end up where that logo is right there. But this is the website, all sorts of features there. And then, of course, the YouTube channel. Please go and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not yet subscribed, guys. But why don't we go to you? We'll start with you, Greg. Just let people have a quick understanding of what is the mission of the Sports Card Clubhouse network.
Well, I think we have all these different channels. We all have our own individual thing that we do, that we like, that we kind of riff on. That's sort of our theme. But we like each other. There's a bunch of people in the community we like. So it's a place where we pair up with different people in the community to talk about cards with each other. So it's sort of like a cross-pollination sort of spot that we hang out like a clubhouse. And there's a bunch of duos and trios that do episodes, and we talk cards. So we leave our individual channel, and this is sort of like our team spot that we hang out.
Very nice. Adam, what about you? I mean, you're kind of the man behind the scenes. You're the guy who has the technological expertise that many of us probably don't have. How have you been enjoying the Sports Card Clubhouse so far? And I want to thank you for welcoming me onto the team, by the way. But any thoughts or comments from you, Adam?
It's exciting to be on Sports Cards Live. I've been a longtime viewer, and it's cool to see my face up on the screen here with the Sports Card Clubhouse logo at the top there. Now, wow, you move quick, Jeremy. Wow, nice work. And David, thank you, thank you for helping us do this. But yeah, we're having fun. Yeah, I guess I'm a little more behind the scenes on the Clubhouse, but I do a show with my man Double D Dylan. Vintage baseball cards. We do a show called Turn Back the Clock, which we've been doing for years. Right now we're doing it about once a month, but I hope we can do that more often now. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, yeah, as we've sort of been alluding to, this all came together in less than the last 48 hours, although it's not like it wasn't thought about. Greg, you and I had a chat about a year ago. You launched the Clubhouse. You guys had some plans. You had some sort of desires. It all came together. David did somewhat help kind of put us all together and maybe fast track the whole thing. And what we're going to do is David and I are going to team up, and it's not just going to be David and I, but it's also going to be, we're going to do about a once a week show exclusively on the Sports Card Clubhouse platforms, both YouTube and podcast. And we're going to be calling it Sports Cards Live Hangover. So we're going to do it. We'll record on Monday or Tuesday after the episode of Sports Cards Live. And David will probably record the first one this Monday or Tuesday. It's going to publish on Wednesday. And right now, and this is a work in process, we're still brainstorming, but I think what we're going to do is, we often do this show and we often miss some comments. Some topics might not get fully fleshed out. We're going to use it as an opportunity to catch up on some of those things. Maybe a few, I'm often, highlighting comments that we don't get to on here. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be open for the Sports Cards Live regulars, David Chase, Joe Poirot, Chris McGill, Josh Adams, Leighton Sheldon. If any of those guys are able to join us at the time we're going to hit record, they're welcome to come on and join the conversation. But that's it. It's going to be basically called The Hangover on the Sports Card Clubhouse Network. Very excited to do that and to send some content that I'm working on to a platform other than Sports Cards Live. Kind of cool. I'm really excited about it. So thank you. And by the way, Mike Junkwax Hero, our fourth partner, is catching up on jet lag. he wanted to be here, but he's sleeping, so he's not here with us right now. Hey, Greg?
Yeah, I will throw this one teaser out. Tuesday's episode, I might have a replacement for the guy who was out of the country for a few weeks, or a few days. So, yeah, he's catching up on sleep, and there's a little fill-in spot on Tuesday's Surface Issues episode.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for welcoming me onto the team. I am flattered. I am honored. I am excited. I am, just super pumped. So thank you to Greg, Adam, and Mike, and to David Chase, and to all the regulars of Sports Cards Live and the chat, of course. I don't think any of this is possible without all of you. So thank you all. And first episode should drop in a few days on Sports Card Clubhouse. So, fellas, thanks for popping on to share.
Thanks for having us on. Yeah,
thank you. The excitement, you bet. We'll see you guys soon. And thanks again. I'm excited.
Yep.
I'm pumped.
All right,
Likewise.
have a great show.
See ya.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Greg. All right. David Chase.
Dude.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Go.
Look at this. I mean, Jeremy. I mean, who doesn't want more Sports Cards Live? Now we have a second Sports Cards Live.
I mean, maybe you and 3 other people, but I don't know. Well, hey, they put up a video on the Sports Card Clubhouse YouTube channel with like basically this video right here saying huge announcement, breaking news, and the comments have been very encouraging. I've read them and liked them, and so I'm just it's such an honor to be so welcomed, and I'm pumped for that. So yeah, but tonight we have a great show here in store. In about 3 minutes, I'm expecting Brett McGrath from Stacking Slabs, another top of the line content creator, one of my, if not my favorite podcaster in the business. He's going to join us. And then we're going to bring on Joe Poirot. We're going to bring on Chris McGill, Josh Adams. We got the chat. We don't really have time to get into any news or topics right now, but I do, Beckett's changing their label. That's pretty exciting. I'd love, you mentioned to me that PSA is hiring, I don't know, what did you say? Like 800, 1,000 people to meet the demand. They believe in the long-term sustainability of the current level of volume in this hobby. That's good to hear that they believe in it. And if they're going to hire people and get faster what they do and maintain control, that would just be awesome. So we'll maybe get to some of those topics a bit later. Before Brett joins us, though, let's go to the comments, David, and say hello to everybody. As we do, we've got Stukes in the house in Palm Beach, Florida. Jacob Dahl, Laura, good evening. Thank you, Stukes. Much appreciate. Good evening to the professor. Thank you, Laura. Really appreciate. 00 Cards guy, Jesse. Happy long weekend up here in Canada. The Curmudgeon, what is up? Jeffrey Clapper, what's going on? Welcome. Mike Petty. Is this a simulcast on Sports Card Clubhouse? Not yet. Coming up, Michael Rader. Welcome. Good to see you. Cardfucius, welcome. We got Hockey Cards Plus, Yankees fan, Willie T, Rob Starr in the house. There's my guy, Patriot Sports Cards. Jeff, what's going on, buddy? Greg Aday from Waxahachie, Texas, 79 degrees. Michael Ham in Tampa. What's going on, buddy? Speaking of Tampa, there's Tampa Home Investors. Welcome. High Pop Professor Brian, Fourth the Game, Nick Chen, all in the house. Bill Betts. We got Mookie Chilson. Jeremy to the clubhouse is like when Ohtani went to the Dodgers. Okie dokie. Hodges, welcome to the show. Larry Gitlin, congratulations in joining the clubhouse. Looking forward to the hangover. I appreciate that, Larry, very much. Hello, Orlando. Good to see you. David Cooey in Muskegon, Michigan is here. Wow, we got Buster. David Chase is very flamboyant. He reminds me of the exercise guru Richard Simmons.
That guy follows me around to every show and makes the same comment.
Same comment. Hey, well, you're memorable, but hey, we love you, buddy. We love you. Mike Petty, much more handsome screen now. Very good. Mid-Atlantic, what's going on? David Cooey, seen me talking with King of the Cards Kyle, one of the videos recently. Yeah, I talked to him at most expos. Mike Petty, we got Stuke still. 00 is going to need a bigger clubhouse. Absolutely. Piccolina the cat, found treasures. Man, oh man, you guys are coming out in drill E105. When will the Sports Card Clubhouse versus Four Collectors battles begin? Another great group over there. Mike Double V, live from Calgary. It's Saturday night. Turn Back the Clock episodes. The High Pop likes those. All love for Four Collectors, says Greg. Absolute. Reef the Sea. Show your base cards. Laura says we're going to need big calendars. Bob Boozle says Jeremy used to be a one wolf pack before the hangover. I got the reference. Absolutely. There's Joe Poirot at Pleasure Point. What's happening, buddy? We'll see you on here shortly. Absolutely. A boon to the emerging content space. Chris, good evening to you. Bob Boozle has the CLTL news alert. Jeremy Lee signs the Sports Card Clubhouse for unspecified amount. Yes, we cannot divulge that amount. Laura wants to know who's designing the t-shirts, especially the hangover ones. Orlando says that I'm everywhere. Don't stop Vintage Spotlight with Leighton. Not stopping the Vintage Spotlight with Leighton. Orlando, appreciate the support on that for sure. We'll keep her going. There's Arnold from Luddix. What's up, Arnold? Welcome to the show. Bob Boozle can't wait for the behind-the-scenes memoir that author Jeremy Lee will write about the Sports Card Clubhouse Power Dynamics. Oh, you know it's coming, Bob Boozle. You know it. Hey, Desert Shield Sniper from Hong Kong. I got to thank Desert Shield Sniper. I believe it was Desert Shield Sniper. Ordered my book, Pops and Comps, and did a video review of it. So thank you so much for that. Strong Cards is excited for Brett. Doesn't miss a single episode at all. Oh, you don't have the lit, Brett. Okay. Hang tight, everybody. I thought I sent it, Brett. My bad. It is coming right now. Everybody hang tight. I'm so fast at this though that it's just going to happen.
As Jeremy does that, I'm going to just explain very quickly on what we did to get the clubhouse together. These guys were two friends that ended up listen, it was basically like two people who I knew really, really liked each other. I threw a house party. I ended up inviting them to the house. I let them go upstairs. I put rose petals on the bed. I turned on Luther Vandross, locked the door, and out came the clubhouse with Jeremy Lee. That's how it ended up getting all started, everyone.
Brett, Stacking Slabs at Gmail is where I sent the link. Let me know if that works for you. It should, and hopefully Brett will join us in just a moment. So, what were you talking about, Luther Vandross? I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, it was not hard to get you guys together because you guys were friends, and I just had to make a party together for you guys to be able to connect in this way. And super excited. I mean,
well done, buddy. Well, Brett
joining
has
these
joined
forces.
us. Jim at the Bank, Barry White, better than Luther. Depends what mood you're going for. All right, guys. Let's bring on my friend. Here we go, Mr. Brett McGrath of Stacking Slabs. Welcome to Sports Cars Live. Again, Brett, how are you?
Jeremy, nice to see you. David, nice to see you. Nice to meet you. It's a Saturday night event here at Sports Cards Live, so excited to be a part of it. Usually not up. It's usually Sports Cards recorded for me. I'm listening to this on delay, so it's fun to be a part of the show this evening.
Well, it's fun. First of all, I'm glad to introduce you to David. Very nice. Joe Poirot will join us for the last 15 minutes of your appearance tonight, Brett. He wanted to make sure to have a bit of time with you. You do content with Chris McGill, another one of the regulars here. So you're not going to cross paths with them here tonight, but definitely listen to Card Ladder Confidential on the Stacking Slabs Network, one of my favorite podcasts out there. And Brett, while you say you listen to Sports Cards Live recorded sometimes next day, as the Sports Cards Live chat audience knows, I go for walks. It's what I do. And I've got your voice in my ear 3-4 nights a week, probably, along with some others. But I listen to your stuff, man. And if anyone is not yet subscribed to Brett McGrath on Stacking Slabs, you can get a wide range of podcast themes and we're going to get into some of that. But Brett, it's when was the last time you were on? You've been on with me before, but I feel like we're going back 5 years, probably. Do you have any recollection of when that was?
It's been a minute, man. I think we've done this a couple times. I remember vividly, though, you had asked me maybe when I was in my first 100 episodes or so, and I remember I was at my old house and I had like a makeshift setup, and it was a night like tonight. And I just remember meeting you kind of for the first time, and it's amazing. You're consistent, Jeremy. So yeah, it's been a while, but I'm excited to be here, and there's so much to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, same here. You've been going the whole time. We've been doing this for about 6. I'm over 6 years. You're about the same, if not a bit more. So it's cool. David Chase, I want to ask you real quick. You gotta have the right answer. Do you listen to Stacking Slabs? Have you heard a few episodes? Talk to me.
Of course, I go on walks just like you do, and I'm a complete podcast. I'm a crazy podcast head. And the one thing that I love about Brett is he has very thought-provoking questions that are not just basic, right? It really reminds me of like the Hoge Vortex, right? Of our own Chris Hoge, and how he asks these questions that are just like amazing, well thought out things that are just not normal hobby topics. So very impressive. And I love that, where it blows my mind, some of these topics that you end up coming up with. Totally love it.
Yeah, appreciate that. We tend to connect with like-minded people in this space, and I have known Chris ever since the beginning. I was listening to House of Jordans when I got back into cards, and we met, and I've probably done content with Chris McGill more than anybody else in the space. And when I listen back to Sports Cards Live, it's always fun to hear Chris's voice and his perspective, especially when the conversations might be leaning towards hockey or vintage baseball, which I know is a little outside of Chris's comfort zone. He is always able to adapt and kind of bring it back to some of the core essence of questions and topics that it doesn't matter what kind of cards you collect. As a collector, it's stuff we want to dig into. So I've appreciated those collaborations here on Sports Cards Live.
Oh, it's good to hear. I love hearing that, Brett. And there's lots of content out there, and as consumers of content, we get to curate what we consume, just like we curate our own collections. And there's something out there for everybody, I would say. And like David, it's funny because if you're not finding the content that you like, create it. That's an option for you. A lot of people say, I create the content that I was looking for. And I, to this day, do the same thing on Sports Cards Live. But lucky for me, I'm actually able to find content that I do enjoy listening to and watching. And Brett, you're at the top of that list for me. So guys, here we are just complimenting Brett's content. But if you have not listened to it, simply Stacking Slabs, you can't miss it. I'm sure most of you are already listening to it, but if you're not, it's just really, really good. So Brett, we can keep on complimenting you, but let's get on with it. The National is coming up here in a couple of months, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk a bit about your initiatives for the National. What's going on in the world of wrestling cards and the National?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeremy. I will say, first of all, it will be tough to beat last year. I mean, I felt like last year was such a culmination of so much happening across the industry. And I had a blast. I was thinking about just all the connections, conversations that spilled out of last year. And I felt like, what we see in this space right now, a lot of that should be attributed to the connections, the cards, the content, everything that came out of the National this year. So, we are thinking about what do we do, at the National this year. I'll be collaborating with Card Ladder. Obviously, we're friends. We're all in this circle, buddies, but I will be working with them. I'll be doing some content. It's still TBD, but you mentioned wrestling cards, and a little ambitious this year. So started a wrestling card podcast on the Stacking Slabs network this year called Book to Last. I am a long time wrestling fan and collector, and I just been waiting for the right time and the right people to launch a show with. I have always really enjoyed the connections I've made in the wrestling card community. It's ton of passion, ton of collectors, cards that get buried. It's just a really fun space that doesn't really operate like any other category that I've collected in. So I've been working with Adam Gelman, who, if anyone knows Adam at WWE Gelman, he's been covering wrestling cards extensively every day for a very, very long time. Super passionate guy. And Ryan Bannister, the owner at RBI Crew 7. So those two guys who are longtime friends and wrestling fans and collectors, we decided, let's work together, let's make this happen. And about 20 episodes deep on Book to Last. And that's really all it took, just the momentum and, working with anyone out there, which I'm sure you knows Ryan or Adam. They are, they have the never settle mindset and mentality, which I love. It's kind of how I operate. It's like, let done is better than perfect. Let's go all in. Let's make something happen. So we're fortunate to be able to host the Wrestling Card Takeover, which is going to be a wrestling card specific event at the NBC Suites in Rosemont during the National Friday, July 31st. We've got space for 350 wrestling card degens out there. If you're interested, RSVP, book to last podcast at gmail.com. But we're working right now. We're going to be announcing sponsors soon. We are going to be doing giveaways. It's just going to be a awesome event. And it's really fun because, and you'll appreciate this as a content guy, Jeremy, but there was a big sale in the wrestling card space this week. You had the Randy Orton WrestleMania patch, 1-of-1 auto sell for north of $42K. Carl Anthony Towns lost that auction. This guy's in the playoffs playing and losing on wrestling cards and admitting it publicly, which is a treat in and of itself, but it got a ton of coverage. In the background, found out that, Ryan was the high bidder through MC Sports Cards. And I was like, this is such a fun opportunity to have this news and be able to share it on Book to Last. So that episode dropped today, but Ryan shared that he was the winner of that, which is the second highest wrestling card sale in kind of modern WWE cards, behind the 2022 Black Prism Rock 1-of-1, which sold for 6 figures. So that was fun. And now we're throwing this party, getting a lot of excitement, and it's just this funny little weird pocket of collectors has really started to grow. And you have the right infrastructure, you've got content. We're not the only content in the space. There's so much good content covering wrestling cards, but yeah, we're going to be throwing that party. So if anyone out there is a fan of wrestling or wrestling cards, we'd love to see you there. Just let us know.
I think it's great that you're having an event, bringing the community together, and that's awesome. And you're passionate about it, so you're going to have the best time. If nothing else, Brett will have a great time with everybody who shows up. So I wish you luck on the event. I think it's cool that you're doing it. Now, on the Stacking Slabs network, you have several different shows, and I could probably sit here and list them off, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll list them off because I'm familiar. You've got Passion to Profession. You've got the Card Ladder Confidential. You've got your flagship show. I think you just call it Stacking Slabs, your flagship show. You've got the wrestling show. You got the WNBA show, and you got a football card podcast as well. I think I hit them all. I mean, they all come up on my feed.
Good job. Yeah.
I got them all. Now, why don't you share with us a little bit about, like, what's the strategy? Are you adding any more? Are you at full capacity like the grading companies are? You have all these different podcasts going on. You endeavor to put out at least one piece every day, I believe. But yeah. Are you done growing? Where are things at? David, before you answer, Brett, David, do you have a favorite episode or a favorite show on the Stacking Slabs network? Or yeah,
I'm a flagship kind of guy. I love the flagship, and I also like the what's the one where it's the profession one?
Passion to Profession, yeah.
Passion to Profession. Those are my two favorites of the series that I love the most. But you know what? Even though I'm not like into that wrestling cards and stuff, I still listen to it. It's interesting. You get like little pieces of information, and I'm totally in, even the shows that I don't collect. So it shows how entertaining that all of them are.
So Brett, where are you in terms of building out the network right now, considering all those shows that I just mentioned?
Yeah, so I'll take a step back and just share some observations that I had across the industry. And some of the things that I started to see were the fact that so many collectors were fragmented in this space. And there were sports cards being talked about generally across a lot of different platforms in a lot of different ways, but collectors really wanted focused shows around the topics and around the categories that they collected in. So that was an observation I made. And as a collector of wrestling cards or football cards, and the experience that I've had, I've found that, niches in these pockets really matter. Different categories need dedicated voices. And so that really led to this ambitious expedition to build shows. So I am in the show building business. And so it is about finding the right topics and categories and finding the right talent to deliver and do it consistently, do it on a weekly basis, and build community in those areas. So that has been the pursuit. And you'll see it's not just sports, but it's also business. So Passionate Profession, we are exploring the entrepreneurial journey of people building cool stuff in this hobby. And so as a individual who spent 15 years in technology and B2B marketing, like the business and the industry side is very, very interesting to me, how it works, the mechanics, the people behind these businesses. And I know through my conversations that was interesting to a lot of other people. So we are building shows for those people. And so you asked me, am I done? I'm never done. I think at our pre-call, I told you I have a whole parking lot of ideas in the background and shows ready to be launched. Right now, it's, we've got a full plate, but things change. So when things change, we want to be able to make sure that we test new ideas. And I'll be completely just transparent here, Jeremy. Like, not everything that I've put out works or has longevity or stays. Like, there's a whole, for all the shows you named, there's probably 6 or 7 other ones that maybe lasted a season or, a few episodes. So there's a lot of testing. You got to see what sticks and what doesn't. But, the football card podcast, WNBA card podcast, and the Book to Last, like, there's people who listen to the network who listen to all of them. Like David, you mentioned, like, I don't collect wrestling cards, but I'll listen to it. But the growth that happens in those individual shows from football card collectors telling their friends about this specific show has been really fun. And like the engagement and the conversations we have with those collectors is really fun. So I'm trying to build this network to scale, and this is how we're starting. So I'm very, very excited. It's a lot of work, man. I'm at that point where I'm not ready to break, but I'm doing a lot of the work. I work with a lot of talent to help support it. I'm working with contractors in the background, but it's constantly trying to refine my process so I can specialize my time, be in the right spaces that I need to, and also understand when, hey, maybe this shouldn't be my voice. Maybe I should be in the background producing, and we bring in someone who has already built and developed the trust with that category, and just let that person fly. And I'll just give a shout out to her. And as an example, Caitlin, who runs the WNBA card podcast, she's an individual I just met, and there was something about her energy, her passion for the space, that just instantly felt like an extension of the Stacking Slabs brand. And we did the first couple seasons together. And then this last season, I said, Caitlin, like, you can do this. Like, you just go, like, I believe in you. And she put together a timeline of women's basketball cards from start all the way up into today with Paige Becker's, like, the whole thing. And she curated guests to cover that whole timeline. I told her, I was like, this is way better than anything I could have done. Like, I'm pumped for next season. So that's fun. Like, it's fun to work with other people and to make, it's cards. Like, this is sports cards. This is what's so fun about the opportunity in this space. It's like, you can just go do it. And luckily I have some pretty cool people around me helping me.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of people around you, helping you, supporting you, you are sponsored. Your flagship show is sponsored by Inferno Red Technologies, an entity that is also supportive here of Sports Cards Live. They built out the Hobby Spectrum platform for me, which is unbelievable. They did a wonderful job building out the Spectrum. And it's funny because as I was working with them back to last summer, I would be listening to your episodes where you have on either Scott Locke, one of the co-founders, or Ed Snyder, lead engineer at Inferno Red and the lead engineer on the Hobby Spectrum project. And I would listen to you talking to them. And I knew this is before it was announced, I knew that I was working with them. They were building something for me and for the hobby. And I'd listen to you and I'd kind of listen to see, are they going to drop any little hints or anything that might reference, working with me or another project sort of like it or good. And it was always fun listening, but it was also a good opportunity for me to hear them, talking to someone else other than me. Because when you're in a business meeting with somebody, they're talking to you directly and you have that, just the way you're getting along and everything. But to hear them speak to you and answer your questions was really enlightening and gave me a ton of confidence in what they're doing. So talk a bit about working with Inferno Red. Now, David Chase, you're gonna come back a bit later on in the show. So before we continue, I want to say thank you to David for joining me for the first part of the show. We'll see you back here, David, in about an hour or so, whatever when. So thank you for hanging out with me.
Nice meeting you, Brett. Definitely
Nice
we'll
to
see
meet
each
you.
other again. Bye, guys.
So thank you, David. So Brett, Inferno Red Technologies, just so I understand completely and make sure I'm not misspeaking, they are a sponsor of your flagship show. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And we also do a monthly show called Built for the Hobby, where I am talking with Scott and other members of the team about different technology topics that impact collectors in this space. We did a mailbag last week, this last week. There's an episode on the feed, so if you want to check it out, where it was a mailbag from collectors, business owners, operators around just AI questions that they had in the space, and Scott fielded those questions. So they're a great partner. I would highly recommend, anyone who has ideas, who's building stuff or works in a company in this industry and have tech projects, like, just give Scott a call and just talk to him, because he's really good at just having conversations. He's not going to tell you something that is over your head. It's like, he's very good at that. And so I've been able to take that and kind of turn it into a show on the network. So yeah, great partners. Love working with them.
Yeah, so do I. And it's kind of cool that we both do work with them. It's a great team over there. So thank you to Inferno Red for everything that they've done for both of us, Brett. Now let's get into some conversation, because that's what Brett's content is all about. Philosophical, deep discussions, talking about collectors' mindset. And if you listen to Brett's podcast and you're at all like me, you probably have had to pause the podcast a few times, rewind, listen again, because something that he has said can be so kind of mind-blowing in how much it can resonate with you, and how he can really kind of hone in on a way that we as collectors in the sports card area, how we feel about certain things. So in preparing for having Brett on, I kind of picked out a couple episodes that he did, and I'm going to pull out a question, Brett, that you asked in one of your recent episodes. This is verbatim. I basically wrote it out verbatim. The question you asked, and I want to get the chat involved in this as well, but you asked, can collectors separate personal taste from social influence in a hobby built on visibility and market validation? So can collectors separate our personal taste from social influence? Because this hobby, in its present day form, I would add, is built on visibility. Much of it is built on visibility and market validation. We share our cards to social media platforms, and people like it, and they reshare it, and it can be influential. It can be a bit of a flex. It can make it difficult to really hone in on what do you like as a collector versus what is the hobby maybe telling you to like. Now, Brett, Did I get that right at all? We're already getting, we've already got absolutely. Mollico, I can separate personally. Tony says, yes, we can separate it. Foul Ball says, yes. I mean, people say, yes, Brett, they can separate it. But before you respond to them at all, what are you thinking when you asked the question? And do you have your own answer to it?
Yeah, so the part of the fun of these episodes, these flagship episodes, they're questions that I'm either dealing with myself as a collector or am observing the hobby deal with. And so that's usually I'll start with the question and kind of reverse engineer my way into an episode. This question specifically, it was an observation that I had that the hobby gives collectors access to more information than ever before. And a problem I started seeing with many collectors, like you mentioned, mistaken visibility for significance. And this most specifically, I started seeing taking place just with specific cards. And you see one collector start posting a card, then you'd see other people chase it. And then all of a sudden, you have whole conversations happening around cards because an individual may be with a higher profile or a strong collection or a strong reputation shared off a mail day. And so I found that interesting. And so in digging into this, and part of the fun of this for me is that I've spent my career studying human behavior and analyzing kind of the psychology behind buying habits. And so that naturally for me, I take into the hobby and build content around. And what I saw in just the separating taste is, there's a constant, there's consistency across the board with collectors trying to chase consensus or seek validations. Or you'd see people just collecting and buying to optimize for specific reactions. And I saw this activity, and this is not everybody, but just in pockets and places. And I thought to myself, I was like, this to me, this doesn't feel like people collecting for meaning. If everyone thinks that one card is the best card, or everyone is just following one trend. And so that's when I started to think about taste and thinking about, well, what is like the framework we can build around protecting our taste. And you asked me, do I think we can separate them? I think everyone's going to say, yes, we can separate them. But when you look at something like the scoreboard, which is the price or what card ladder's reporting, when numbers and comps or cards that we used to collect go up or cards that we currently own go up, it starts to get really, really challenging. So as I asked myself this question, I said to myself, of course I can separate it. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized, well, maybe I don't think I have as much of control over this as I really think I do. And so that's the fun part about just psychology and this weird world we collect in online on the internet, where there's multiple social platforms, multiple marketplaces, multiple ways to interact. That interaction and online exchange of ideas and information and content, I think it really impacts our ability to truly get focused in and have a taste around specific cards. And I'm not trying to be bombastic and say we don't have taste. We certainly do. And so I connect mostly with individuals who I see kind of charting their own path. And even if it's a category I don't collect in, I'm interested when I can tell they have taste around the subject or the category that they collect in.
That they collect in. Exactly. You said in all that it's not everybody, it's pockets and places of people. So just because we're talking about this, it doesn't mean that Brett or myself are projecting that everybody has lost the sense of their own taste and they're just being influenced by others. That's not it at all. But if you are open to new things like I am, you are very influential, if that's the way to say it. Like I've said it 100 times here, guys, you've heard me before, but like, I don't know everything that I might like until it's presented to me. And where do my eyeballs look many moments throughout the day is social media, Instagram. People post a card and I'm like, ooh, I like that. Or I see it on YouTube, or I see wherever I see it, even at the shelf at an LCS. Someone decided to put that there, and that's going to catch my attention. And it might cause me to want to go down that rabbit hole and collect that card and that set. That happens all the time to so many of us. So, Brett, I want to read a few of the comments that have come in because there's some great comments here, and then we can respond to some of them. Foul Ball says, not all collectors share cards on social media. Absolutely. And not all collectors are on social media to be influenced at all. Brett, you got something to?
Yeah, I love Foul Ball calling this out. I think I did it 2 weeks in a row recently within the last couple months. I had a call out to my audience, and I just said, because we were talking about this topic, just influence social media. And I just asked, I said, if you are listening to Stacking Slabs right now and you aren't on anything, like you are collecting in isolation, send me an email, because I know you have email. Like, send me an email. And I came back to my computer. It must have been the Thursday or Friday, whenever it was. And I had emails. I was like, people are sending me emails. Like, we get messages everywhere, but I'll tell you what, Jeremy, I was so excited to open up those emails and read them. And they were the most like thoughtful responses from people telling me like where they listen and like why they're not online and what they collect. And it just goes to show you, like, we get so caught up in saying like our algorithm on Instagram or this YouTube channel or on Twitter, that's the hobby. It's like, it's not even close to the full breadth and depth of this hobby. It's crazy. So yeah, I recently went through that and had to call that out.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're right. It's not even close to the whole hobby, what we see on any social media platform, including this one being YouTube. Good evening to Ben Burrows. Mookie Chilson says social influence is everywhere, not just the internet. It's impossible to separate. I think that goes like billboards, advertising's been around a long time. Double V says social media can influence additions to the collection. Absolutely. Laura says, yes, collectors predated social media. Mic drop. Absolutely and true. But before that, you got Beckett magazine. Maybe you got Sports Collectors Digest. Maybe you went to a card shop or a card show and saw cards in showcases. That was kind of social media in its day, or at least access to imagery of cards to look at what you might want to collect. So absolutely true. Tony says, is this more prevalent in the modern hobby? I don't know. There's a lot of vintage guys posting cards on social media, just like there's modern. Brett, do you have an opinion on Tony's question? Because I don't know how to answer that exactly, other than say I see both.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. I would say, if I were to think about it, I think the more time you spend in this space collecting, the narrower your focus is, and the more you understand your taste and what you like or what you don't like. That is true. And so I think that a lot of this takes place on the front end of individuals coming into this space unaware or unfamiliar, and they're just taking everything that they see as at face value based on the motivations and desires of whoever's posting and holding those cards. So I would say it feels like this is being very general, but I would imagine if you're collecting vintage baseball, you've probably been collecting sports cards for a very long time, and your taste is probably refined, which in turn you're probably less likely to be influenced by something new, shiny, or something like that. So that's how I take it, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes sense to me. Some people are kind of just really into what they're into, and that's what they want to collect, and they're not looking for new things. Pre-social media, and maybe this could be early social media, we had message boards, kind of in between print and social media. You had the message boards online, and I know I spent a lot of time there, and that was a place where you could certainly be introduced to things to collect. I'll use that phrase instead of being influenced. High Pop Professor says, it's tougher nowadays. Everyone who engages in the hobby, whether posting on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc., is now technically an influencer, intentionally or not. I find that to be so true, because it doesn't matter who shows something. If I'm following you and I happen to see a card, a set, whatever it might be, that catches my eye, it doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers or a dozen. You have the potential to change the course of my collection. It's really as simple as that. What are your thoughts, Brett, on, everyone today is technically an influencer, intentionally or not?
Yeah, I mean, I just think we are in an economy of interests and tastes and sharing, and it's more easy than ever before. We have access to people and cards, and yeah, it's whether you like it or not, you never know who's looking or watching, or who could appreciate the words you're using or the cards that you're posting.
I just see here, thank you, Brett, that Jesse says before IG there were forums. I might have just beat you to that one, Jesse. Thank you to Brian Hypop Professor for his comment. Jay Mollico says it is funny how if someone big posts a card, people will say how great it is, but if someone else does it, it doesn't get as much love. And that's the power of influence and true influencers, the big accounts. It's almost like if you see someone has big numbers, you assume they are influential, and maybe you need to pay more attention to them. And I'm not talking to anyone in particular. I think that's just a general statement. But Brett, how do you break this down? Because I think Mollico's onto something here. This makes sense to me that this is how it goes. What about you?
Yeah, I think there is an over obsession, and this is not just in the hobby, but just in society, to take metrics like follower count or likes and to over index and make that not only feel like a place of authority, but something that we, out of a shadow of a doubt, should follow, know, and trust. And I never take that really into consideration. It's more the showing up consistently, posting, being helpful, even if it's, it doesn't matter how many people you follow. And I think that's not only on the collector engagement side, but it's also on just like the content side. It's like I would rather resonate with fewer people than reach more people, is kind of my mindset when I think about the content that I build. But yeah, I mean, I think that's an issue across the board, and social media has kind of made us think that you have to have a certain amount of followers in order to have legitimacy. And I'm not a believer in that.
No, and especially if you just kind of distill it down, there are people who have, a fraction of the amount of followers as other people have, and those people have, gobs more experience and intuition into the hobby than some of the biggest accounts do. Nothing against them. I'm just saying there are people without followers that have that know a lot about this hobby and have great, I will say great opinions, which is a weird thing to say, but opinions that I think would resonate with a lot of people. Mid-Atlantic here says, I don't think Brett's question is unique to sports cards. It's a question about our relationship with social media, need, influence, and affirmation. I think that's absolutely correct. Mookie here says, everything you know and learn comes from somewhere else. Everything you know is as a result of social influence. It's inseparable and not always bad. I love Mookie coming in with a very sort of logical, somewhat contrarian approach to the question, saying, listen, we are influenced. We are being, our minds are being impacted by what we're seeing out there, but it's not always bad. I mean, there's a lot of targeted advertising out there, especially if you let your device do it. And most people I hear, they don't want no, I don't want to tell you my preference. Don't listen to me. I don't want to see targeted ads. And I'm not saying I want to, but if there's something I might want and the device is going to hand it to me because it was listening to me or something, that might help me find something I was looking for. I understand the invasion of privacy and all that for sure, guys. Don't get me wrong, but maybe it's not 100% bad. Maybe it's 98% bad. But in any event, what do you think of Mookie's comment here, Brett? Do you think that, everything we do know is a result of what we're exposed to?
I think at some level, because everyone starts somewhere. And I think the way I look at it, maybe I look at a lot of things and share a lot of it through just my own personal experience. And it was when I got pulled back into the space, you get pulled back in through something. And then you start observing and seeing, and you see people buying certain things, and you think, oh, well, this is what I should be buying. And you have to take the L's. You're like, I didn't even care about this card. I just lost a bunch of money on this card. And then a lot of the times those people attrit or fall out the bottom and never see the stay in the hobby and never come back again. But there's individuals who go through those lumps and they want to continue to collect because there's something interesting there. And that's where I think collectors are trying to understand their own personal taste. But we've all been through this. And so it's like, once you find that thing that gets you here and you're collecting for a reason and there's meaning behind the purchases, that's when this space sinks its teeth in you. And there's a million things, there's, oh, well, this card could go up in price, or this card reminds me of when I was a kid collecting with my dad, or I love this player. There's all those things. And it's not just one thing. It's just like the combination of all of those things that really helps to form our taste. So yeah, this comment resonates for sure. And I think we all go through it at some level.
Yeah, absolutely. Mollico says we live in a world of heavy influence and influencers. We sure do. Double O's card guy. I would have never seen the amazing Dobie team photo of Tony's if not for Instagram. And guys, Double O Cards guy does shout out his own Instagram account here, which I got to say, he says, I've been posting bangers all week. Follow me, LOL. do follow him. This is Jesse, buddy of mine. We set up together at the card shows locally here in Calgary. He helps me out. Do me a favor, give him a follow on Instagram. I've been enjoying your posts this week, Jesse. Great stuff, fun stuff. So I think a lot of you will like it. So go give Double O's card guy a follow on Instagram. Mike Petty says, I'm easily influenced by Con Knipple. Okay, Petty. What's up, Petty? Good to see you. Mookie also says the best social influence doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. Brett, I don't think we have time to dive into that one. That's a major, hey, maybe that's David Chase. That might be a good one for the hangover coming up here in the next couple of days. Tony says it's all about the passion. It's hard to fake. Just collecting what others collect because it looks cool doesn't necessarily equate to passion for me. I think it's a great point made by Tony, Southern Collector 14. Check out his channel. Check out all these channels. But the reason why is that if you're only collecting what other people like, what are you really doing? Let me answer my own question. What you might be doing is discovery. You might not know exactly where you want to be, and you might be dabbling in different things to eventually hone in on what is actually going to make you happy and what you really want to collect. Brett, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Tony, so he's always coming from a place of passion. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, I explore this stuff, and it's really hard for me to think about spending all of the money on something that you just see someone else. The fun part about this space is our opportunity to show our taste and express our interest and passion and talk about it. It's like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I appreciate collectors like Tony, who he'll sit there and he'll tell you 2 hours about why he bought a certain card because he knows about it. There's history about it, and he loves the card, and he'll tell you all about it. So yeah, man, that definitely resonates.
And the thing about that kind of content is that that's evergreen content, like what Tony produces. It's going to last forever. And let's face it, a lot of the research that he's doing, that Hoj does, that anybody does who is going deep into a player, their card menu, or a card or a set, this is stuff we are saving future generations time from doing that research all over again. They can just come back here and find a lot of it. Hopefully we've uncovered most of that information. What's up, Tropic Collects? Aaron, good to see you. Michael Rader says it's so easy to get influenced and head down a new rabbit hole. It's kind of, how about this one, Brett and chat? I often go looking to get influence. I will sometimes I'm searching for something that catches my eye. You go to a card show and you go to someone's booth, they say, well, are you looking for anything in particular? I'm like, come on. Like, let's sit down and talk till next Tuesday, because, I'm often just looking for something that catches my eye and puts me down a rabbit hole. Brett, what do you think?
So this is what I love. I love this car. So I have, this, Jeremy, but I have 3 young kids, 4.5 and younger. And so it's challenge. This is the quietest the house has been in a long time right now as I record here with you. But it's hard for me to get out of the house and go to shows as much as I want. Although there's a stretch coming up and I'm really excited about it. I'll just shout these shows out real quick. I'm going to be Midwest Monster here right in my backyard in Fishers, Indiana. That's coming up at the beginning of June. Columbus Card Fest, which is Ryan Card Collector 2 show. You got Fanatics Fest, you got the National. So I'm excited to get back on the show circuit a little bit. But when I go to shows, you keep walking, you're looking at the showcase, and you go through this experience where it's just like every case starts to look the same because it's all the same kind of stuff and the flavor of the week. And it's just like next, but then you stop and you just look at the case and it's well curated. And it doesn't matter. It could be 90s cards, it could be hockey cards, but you can tell there's some thoughtfulness that is put together with that case. And so whenever I see it and I get the pattern interrupt at a show and I stop at the case, I just start asking the questions, like asking about the sets, the parallels, the players and the errors. And the dealer behind the table you'll have the best conversation of all time. And in that conversation, they'll say something because they've been collecting this stuff for years and they know so much about it that you'll start to think, man, maybe I should think about picking up that exquisite card, or maybe I should dip my toe into hockey cards because the person behind the table has all the passion and energy. So that's kind of what stood out in my mind as that was brought up.
Absolutely. Okay. Mookie says, I see vintage collectors changing and evolving all over the place. The great trust relationships in this community make that change so common. Yeah, I think if you like somebody and they like something, and unless for whatever reason you're not into it, you can be open to it. There's so many awesome things to collect. OTE says, I go back and forth on the net effect of social media on collecting, but social media 100% helps you unearth cards you otherwise would never have access to or know the location of. Absolutely. Desert Shield Sniper says it's because everyone nowadays has an opinion. We collectors really need to be clear about what our collection means to us and what to collect. That's true too. I mean, these things I think we have to balance letting ourselves get too scattered with what do we really like, but sometimes you're experimenting, as I think a lot of us do. So I like that comment from Desert Shield Sniper. Adam, the Real 27 guy, says, I would rather, he's quoting you, Brett, I would rather resonate with fewer people. Yep, got to keep it real. Doesn't matter how many people follow you if you're not being real. High Pop Professor says, social media has also fundamentally changed the collecting experience. There are many cards that have found their way to my collection only because of the hobby community. Same here. Absolutely. High Pop Professor has influenced me. Mike Petty says, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in again. Mike Petty's still here. Tom Newman says, Brett the GOAT. 100% agree. Mr. Mano says, I don't create card content. I have over 300,000 followers and still like watching Sports Cards Live. Well, happy to have you here, Mr. Manos. Orlando, a collector's dream, says evergreen content is awesome. I get most excited when viewers comment on videos I made 3 years ago. Yeah, it's not a treat. The Professor says it may be a way to connect as card bros by mimicking collecting cards that others mention. I would just say that you don't need to have a card someone else has in order to connect with somebody. But I do a hashtag card bros, Brett, whenever someone posts a card that I have, like, card bros, I have that. It's like saying I have the same card. We have that hobby connection. It's just a fun little thing. And it can be fun, but I wouldn't ever encourage somebody to just go buy a card that someone else has so you can say card bros. I would make sure you like the card, or at least be in that experimentation phase where you're searching for your own lane or lanes. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I find it fun, especially when it's like maybe cards from a popular set and maybe it's a short print, 10 copies or whatever. It's fun to know who another person is who owns a similar copy. That in and of itself is like a great hobby pastime, is trying to find all the people who own a copy of a specific card. So card bros, I like it, Jeremy.
Yeah, just something a little bit fun. Okay, continuing. The card deal says content creator and influencer are not the same thing. Somewhere the majority of the world forgot that influencer is nothing you need in your life. Lead your own path. That's a really interesting comment, because I have said before and thought in my own mind before, Brett, that content creator is different than influencer. However, I think the content creators I would ask the card deal, do you agree that a content creator can and does have influence over one or more people? Or maybe it's zero, or maybe some don't. But I think if you're creating content or people are watching or listening, you must be having some influence over them, even if it's just a little bit. And I think the other thing is that you're not setting out to do it. I don't set out to influence anybody. I set out to just express my passion for this hobby, for cards. And if I've influenced someone along the way as a consequence of creating content, I can't really help that. That's just going to be what it is. So they may not be the same thing to the card deal, but I think there is overlap. Brett, can you help me understand this better?
I think the self-identification of an influencer always feels a little icky to me. It's like influence is a part of the way we interact and communicate. And I agree with you. Like, you are not setting out to influence people, but you have this show and you're consistently putting out a show and you're curating guests. And naturally, through that process of information sharing and ideas, like, people will get influenced by things that are said, but that's not the direct intention of creating content. It's a side effect.
Absolutely. It's not the intention. It is a side effect. Well said. Foul Ball says, I collect for a hobby, nothing else. I don't understand people that get influenced. And it can be hard to put yourself in somebody else's mindset and understand why or how they are influenced. But I mean, if you've ever noticed a brand name, Foul Ball, you are influenced. You're influenced by the checklist. You're influenced by Tops. Tops puts out a checklist and you want to fill that set. Tops is your boss. That checklist owns you because you need to fill every pocket of that binder. So you are influenced, but you might only be influenced by the corporation, not by other collectors. But I think that's a form of influence because you are behaving based on guidance that you're receiving from them, or you're being more selective and you're saying, okay, I don't need all 700 cards from this set. I want my favorite 30, but you still have to choose from what they're providing you and the images. It's all there is some sort of marketing going on there.
Let's talk about the manufacturer influence, and it is at an all-time high. And I think you just think about this example, and I know you've talked about it on your show, Jeremy, but just think about the debut patches. This was a concept that was created in an office space in a room somewhere by very important product people and likely executive oversight at Fanatics. And it was a great idea. It was wildly successful. It has been massive. It is the talk of the town. But this was influenced by the manufacturer who is selling us cards. And all of a sudden, it is the #1 card. And it hasn't been a card for that long. It's a great idea. It's a great concept. I'm a big fan of it. I think anyone is, because it hits all the different elements of what we like as collectors and how to connect with the game and our favorite players. But you can't get it twisted and not think that, like, a manufacturer's in control of that, which I'm okay with it. It's the way things shake out. It's part of it. I certainly can't afford those cards, but it's just funny how something can quickly come down the pike and kind of be the #1 card. And it's not like it's been going on for decades.
Yeah. Tropic Collect says, I must say also the positives of social influence take out the negatives of the positive of social media takes out the negatives of the influence. I like that comment, because that is basically saying I'm taking control of how I am digesting and receiving the signal from, let's say, social media type influencers. Carl from Oz says, I love hearing everyone's thoughts and directions in which they're going. I'm a guilty copycat in lots of ways, though, but by no means always. So am I. I think that's fine. Laura says, so if I bought a Cracker Jack Joe Jackson t-shirt, does that connect me to my card bro, Jeremy? Laura, we're connected. We're connected. Mookie says, I think this is a great comment. I think content creators are responsible for the transmission, not the reception. It's a consumer's job to be influenced or not. Yeah. Take accountability. Proceed. You don't have to be influenced by anybody at all. Sammy Hill just watched the Sports Card Clubhouse announcement. Congrats on joining the team, Jay Lee. Can't wait to enjoy the first hangover. Thank you, Sammy Hill. I'm very excited. Chris C says, if you pump and dump, you're a chump. Yeah, we can all get behind that. The card deal says, as long as he or she is honest, that is content to me and not influencing. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great approach, but I still think that honest person, I see what you're saying. The intention is not to influence you, but you might be influenced by them. That's the sweet spot, right? Don't try to influence me. Let me decide if I want to be influenced by you. I think that's a good approach for anybody who consumes content. Brett, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think let me read this. As long as that yeah. I think that's right. I mean, I've talked a lot about, for as much content as I create, I consume just as much, and it's not necessarily influencing, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've beat up this topic quite a bit, Jeremy.
Well, we do that. Let's go to I want to read Victor's comment, and then we're going to bring Joe on. Victor says, author John Maxwell defines leadership as influence. Many collectors are leaders of their own niche. When they speak of this niche, it can influence us to follow suit. That makes sense to me, Victor, and good to see you as well. All right. Let's bring on Joe, but the next topic I want to touch on, Brett, is hobby versus industry. I think you and I talked a little bit about that before. Guys, thank you for the comments on the last topic. And the other one that Tropic Collects is saying, can we get the goats equals safe soon? I think we're going to say that for the end of the show, Aaron, so you'll have to stay up later or watch that tomorrow. But we're going to talk about hobby versus industry. But let's bring on Joe Poirot. Brett, Joe, you good? He is good. All right, Joe, good to see you. Welcome as always. Please say hello to Brett.
Hello, Brett.
Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So good to have you on the show. I'm a big fan. I've been listening to you guys, obviously all the stuff about taste, but one thing that I think is particularly unique and compelling about your content is your style. You have this recursive, sort of rigorous inquiry that just comes at a theme, an idea, a thesis, as you sometimes say, in so many different angles, and returning it to over again and again. I always think of Plato, the unexamined life is not worth living. So you and Hoj are two of my favorites, and I can see how you guys kind of cross-pollinate a little bit too. So great to have you on, and I'm a big fan.
Joe, appreciate that. I will tell you, it's a first. I'll take the Plato comp. I'm not sure I've gotten that one before, but I'll take that one. That's for sure. Appreciate the kind words.
Nice, Joe. Very nice. Rock Latex here says, beating up a topic. That's a Sports Cards Live special.
Yeah, I should have known. I forgot what arena I was in for a second.
Yeah,
there
Jeremy. There you go. So let's talk about a little bit about this hobby industry. And this came from something that you have talked about, Brett. I think this goes back a few months ago. But you were basically in one of your episodes where it's like you're thinking out loud, but you were talking about how the hobby, it's not just one market, it's several micro markets, which makes me think about how the hobby is a market. It's a collection of micro markets that live in an industry. And we talked about this before on here, but I want to get your angle on this. So can you sort of set the stage for your, it's not the hobby, not just being one market, but being several micro markets, and what brought you to that realization?
So this observation was the core of what we talked about earlier with the creation of the network and the category specific shows. But I really got tired, Jeremy, of people just talking about the hobby like everything moves together. it just seemed very outdated. And I kept going back to just my observations of how fragmented the hobby was. And there are different pockets and collector groups that value things differently. The different collector groups, they behave differently. They respond differently to market conditions, and they collect for different emotional reasons. And as I got down in these spaces and met with the collectors, I really started to understand like each of these categories has its own culture, like its own space and their ideas and the way information flows. And that's where I don't know, that's where I just started talking about it, because I got so tired of the generic, like mainstream, clickbaity hobby headlines of this is happening because this happened. And it just seems so dull and generic to me. And it's like, hey, everyone, let's like pause here and like take 100 steps below the surface and like start telling and talking about the real stories that are happening in these spaces. So that was really the catalyst for it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And you mentioned that the hobby's fragmented, and not just because one type of card market differs from another, but also where are people gathering? What platforms are they on? What, even like some cards will sell for more in one setting versus another type of setting. And then you've got one of my something that I got a little vocal on recently. I at least posted a story post on Instagram, and this was about the card not cleaning, but restoration area of the hobby. And I'm going to share the post that I made on the screen.
Was this at the height of that conversation in the hobby?
This was not at the height of the conversation. This was 4 days ago.
Okay. I didn't realize it was back.
This is here I'm going to share my story post. There's a lot of text here, so I'll read it. But it right here in this. So what I'm doing is I'm sharing an image of a story post. It's a screenshot, and on the screenshot, one part of it shows a reel that somebody posted on Instagram. Actually, the name of the person that posted this reels card, the Card Spa TX. Guessing they might be in Texas, and they have a card spa, and it shows them. It's basically that's a 59 Mickey Mantle under there. They have the gloves on. The cards just got out. It just got out of the soaking tub, and now he's rubbing out creases and trying to fix the card. And I made the comment, here's footage of a Mantle card at the old card spa for a hot tub and massage. Literally, what's happening? The card got a hot tub and massage. I go on to say, I don't know about all of you, but I don't want my cards passing through some dank backroom operation for molestation like this. I'm being aggressive on purpose. I go on to say some collectors are okay with this kind of restoration, fine, but the rest of us rely on PSA and other grading companies to identify and disclose cards that have been altered, restored, worked on, or molested. I want to know whether a card has a history of frequenting seedy facilities like this before I decide to buy it. These guys don't disclose their molestation. They try to fool PSA and their customers. That tells you everything that you need to know. So I'm bringing this up right now, Brett and Joe and chat, because I've talked about this before, and then I go and I get emails from people. They email me and they say, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. What's your problem? Why can't people restore cars? People restore comic books. Why can't we restore cards? I just want to know. Give me the option. Don't hide it from me is where I come from. So Brett, I kind of went down this topic now because of your topic. It's not really related, but your topic just being that there are different markets. There are different groups of people and mindsets out there. So this is one of them. This is a type of mindset that exists out there where people are okay. And my whole thing is, listen, you do what you want to do to your cards. I can't stop you, but I want to at least know that the card I'm about to buy has a checkered past before I buy it. Any thoughts, Brett?
Yeah, I just this is wild. So this is a area which I missed your story post. I didn't see this, but this is an area of the hobby that I don't interact with much or know anything about, but I think, and I would say I don't necessarily support this activity, especially, and I'm sure maybe, and I'm not a vintage collector, but I would imagine this kind of activity is more it happens on the vintage side with restoration in quotes and this and that. So yeah, that's, especially if you're buying, spending a lot of money in the space, you want to know the provenance, you want to know the activity before you buy a card that, has been through this and you don't approve of it. So, every time I see something like this, I just constantly go back to this space is I feel like imperfect at a level, and that imperfection is through activities that many people don't agree with, but then some people do, and there's no regulation across this space. So this diversity of approaches, and some people legitimately accept this and say this is right, this is okay, and there's a strong contention that says this is not. And that like diversity of opinion and thought like continues to drive the imperfection of the space, but I also think it creates really good dialogue as well. But yeah, that's interesting. Quite the positioning there with the spa element to it. I've never thought about cards in a spa together, and now I'm not sure I'll get that visual out of my head. Jeremy,
hot tub and a massage. That's literally they literally soak these cards in a liquid bath. I don't know what it's made of, and then they take it out and then they give it a literal massage with some special tool. And listen, we've got some comments out there. We'll get to them. Joe, what do you think of it? And listen, this isn't a new topic, so we don't need to beat the dead horse, but we will a little bit because that's what we do. Joe, what are your thoughts on the topic? And then I also want to give Joe an opportunity to ask Brett a question or two unrelated to these topics, Joe. So over to you, buddy.
Well, I like how you link this to the sort of microclimates that Brett has featured in some of his content. This is also not a climate that I am particularly interested in or even all that aware of. The extent for me is like maybe in the realm of vintage, buying an authentic card and not knowing if it's authentic because the person didn't want to grade, or, occasionally you'll have an authentic altered card, and I have bought those. I appreciate the transparency. If I can, get into a card that just looks good to me, it's not going to be a cornerstone of my collection, but occasionally it allows me to get into a card. But like the spa stuff, not so much. And it is a sensitive topic. I do think it's intriguing in so much as it starts to, overlap, I suppose, with some other categories, including comic books. I don't know a whole lot about that, but Neo's talked about that from time to time. So yeah, I think it's going to be an ongoing thing, and I don't really have a whole lot more to add.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is an ongoing thing, and will continue, I'm sure, because there's people out there that are doing it, and you should see some of the comments on that video. Very positive. I recently saw another post. Somebody up here in Canada posted that they are now the new, I guess, Canadian distributor for Kurt's Card Care. And the comments that were left on that post were like, hell yeah, like, way to go, like, to the moon, like all this stuff. People, that's why for those of us in the school of, listen, we know it's out there, we have to accept the reality, but I just want to have the option not to buy those cards. If I'm buying a card, I want to know if the seller knows that this card has gone to the spa and been subject to the hot tub and the massage. I would like to know that myself before I was going to make my final purchasing decision. Before I go to comments, Brett or Joe, either of you have anything, or should we go to comments? Because I got a few I want to get to. We're good? Okay. So, oh boy, we got lots here. So I'm going to go down to this one. Right. Oh, first of all, Jay Molikos calls you Brett Gladwell, a reference to Malcolm Gladwell, which I think is an astute comment right there. Orlando says it is not okay. Vintage Oddball says that I'm talking the truth. Reef the Sea says, oh my God, cleaning a mantle. How dare you? Chris C says, that's what I like about the hobby spectrum. There are so many different ways we can approach the hobby, and not one way is wrong. Desert Shield Sniper says, people have no problems because in fine art, restoration is very common. The question is, should it? The Last Supper has been restored so many times. It's no longer the work of Da Vinci. That's powerful right there. Bob Boozle says they don't disclose cleaned cards because they know it's going to turn off a lot of people. Exactly. So right there, that tells you what you need to know. Desert Shield Sniper says the same people that accept restoration with cards will accept trimming. What's the difference? I don't know if they will. I don't think all of them will to Desert Shield Sniper. Some of them definitely might, though. And Bleached Wolf here says he's a chem guy. Not sure we have enough data for long-term use and exposure of these products on our cardboard with sufficient data on what truly happens to them in the long term. And I think that's an issue that a lot of people has is, are any of these things that are removed going to come back, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not a chem major either, so tough to say. But yeah, listen, I didn't really mean to go down this topic for too long, but here we are. Good evening to Big D. Welcome to the show. Rob Star says the intent is to deceive for monetary gain. That equals fraud right there. But Hobby Champ says, I don't vibe with the sanctity of card damage. I'm very against trimming, recoloring, and soaking, but the hostile discourse around most of the other forms of card cleaning is sanctimonious. Okay, well, appreciate those thoughts right there. Professor says, I would also like to know if a seller is selling a card that was previously graded and cracked, but that does not happen. Yeah, very fair, very fair. Okay, so and I think enough of that for now. But Joe, we got Brett with us. We have him for really only a few more minutes. So I want to, we might squeeze an extra 5 out of you, Brett. So Joe, any question, anything you want to get Brett talking about for a few minutes?
I mean, yeah, it's hard in just a few minutes. I guess where I might just turn to is, you know, I do some content creation more just in written form, Brett. You know, I'm a director of advancement at a small independent school here in Santa Cruz. And I so appreciate your delivery. And I wonder, when you're working on your content, I mean, I'm assuming you're writing it out and reading it when you're delivering it, or how does that all go about? Could you tell us a little bit about your creative process?
Yeah, how the sausage is made. I actually love talking about this stuff. It varies, and it varies by topic. I would say I have tried to streamline it more and more, but usually, as I said earlier in the conversation, that it starts with a question that I have or somebody else in the space has inspired me to have, and I will just go down the research rabbit hole. Obviously, I'll start with my opinion, but I want to beat up that opinion and want to poke holes in it, and I'll start researching. And usually, there's a document created. I have a folder for every episode with everything you need to know about each episode, and I just try to be habitual about that process of documentation and refinement. And so it eventually gets to a point where I have a working doc to deliver an episode. Now, some days I feel a lot more comfortable than other days before I do that, but I find that the joy of it for me as someone who is delivering it is that sometimes it is structured and there is a formatted script, but then other times there's more uncertainty when I'm going through it, and it's more of a freestyle. So it's a balance of both. I always have this feeling after I get done, especially on the solo episodes, of like, I really like this, or maybe I should go back and do something again. But yeah, it varies, and you do enough of these, you start to develop kind of a good way to do it. But that's a question I haven't really talked about enough. But yeah, I spend way too much time. It's part of the process that is the most time intensive, but I have found is foundational for my brand and is necessary for me to do in order to keep the whole house together, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, that rings true in so much as it feels like you're both incredibly compared and kind of on the fly, you know, kind of following your stream of thoughts. And I think that's what makes it so compelling.
I'll say I enjoy being in this spot where I'm on the other end and Jeremy's driving the car and I'm kind of passenger. I enjoy this, but I'm not. I'm definitely more comfortable in the seat Jeremy is in right now, as opposed to where I'm sitting right now. And that's me being real. It's just like but I also, Jeremy, I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but like, I like control. It's part of the reason I left my comfortable job in tech and started this business on my own, is I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. So I love these opportunities of being in this seat, but I'm certainly not as comfortable as I am when I'm kind of steering myself.
You know, it's funny, Brett. You ask if I feel the same way at all. It's like I love doing this. I love doing the Sports Cards live streams. You know, we're 900 different live streams already here. I love it. But I also love when I'm the guest on someone else's show, and it's just like it's a walk in the park. You know, it's so much easier. I thrive on this multitasking, running a live stream, chat, guests, you know, all the different things going on. But yeah, I love being in your chair right now as well, where you can just relax and just, you know, answer the questions, have the discussion.
You'll get an opportunity to do that soon. We've a little teaser. There might be an episode coming out soon with Jeremy on the Stacking Slabs network. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that. A bit of a home and home series, if you will.
Yeah, that's right.
As is somewhat customary within a lot of, not that it's expected or anything, but it just it works out that way. And just so I do have a few things that I can talk about on your channel that fit one of your shows. So I'm certainly excited about that. So Brett, we are up on time here, where we had you. We had a commitment from you to get us until 11:30 Eastern. That's what it is right now. I want to give you the opportunity to go, but I also want to give you the opportunity to stay for a few minutes if you have it in you, but feel free to just say thank you and be on your way. I don't want to, no pressure.
I will. Yeah, I will. We had a rough night of sleep here at Stacking Slabs HQ with one of the little ones. So I'm going to take the opportunity to bow out, but thank you. And Joe, definitely, it's nice to formally say hello. And also just thanks to the chat. Like, I'm so impressed by the volume of people that show up and support Sports Cards Live every week. And it's so fun seeing you pull up the chats. These are, when I'm on my walks listening to Sports Cards Live, I hear the names all the time. So it's fun to interact and be a part of it. So appreciate all you do, Jeremy, and looking forward to reconnecting.
Absolutely, Brett. Thanks so much for joining us here on Sports Cards Live. Brett, everybody, Brett McGrath, Stacking Slabs, like, follow, subscribe for Brett, all those things. We'll see you soon, buddy. Thanks again. All right. Thank you so much to Brett for joining. Joe, we have a rare little 15-minute or so segment before Josh and Chris join us. There's some more. I only have 4 comments in the chat that I had sort of indicated that I wanted to get to. Maybe we'll knock those out really quick. They're not. Some of them are kind of quicker, but there's only 4. But I want to bring out High Pop Professor's comment. He says he says unpopular fact. PSA is pretty bad at detecting certain types of alterations. Buying a card in a PSA slab gives the buyer a false sense of security in this regard. I think that's true. He says, pretty bad at detecting certain types. We don't know just how bad. We just don't know, because we don't know what they're actually detecting and what is not getting through them. You only really see the ones that do get through. So we do know that some get through, and really, this false sense of security is something that, like, we've assigned to them, and maybe other grading companies too, is like, we believe you, we trust you. And I think you just have to realize that they are not perfect. I think people realize that. But the other similar to this is altered patches, replaced patches, patch swaps, fake patches. They can't detect that either. Nor can Beckett. I've seen several. One just sold the other night on eBay, an altered patch. So it looked totally, it was a Carey Price rookie, the Cup RPA, said right in the title, fakes. Why? Because there is visual evidence of the original patch. So the grading companies don't recognize some of these things, and that means we have to be on high alert. And that's an advantage that as Jim defines Sportix says, the card Seuss is have an advantage on us because they can get these things past the grading companies, and that's not good for us. So I think Brian, High Pop Professor, is right, and we just have to be more diligent. Bob Boozle said Sports Card World Police will be cracking down on these card massage parlors. You can take that to the bank. And Michael Rader says, I love the hobby. I dislike the industry. It's all about greed and money for the industry, not servicing the customers. So many scandals and no course correction. There is all that, Michael. I agree. But I also maintain, maybe contrarian style, that the hobby is in the industry. The industry is bigger than the hobby in many ways. So yeah, the industry is all about money. Just any business is all about money for the most part. Businesses are meant to provide bottom line, margin, profit, income. So you just have to accept it, find a way to adapt within it, and get on with your hobby life. And I say that as like caring. I want people to enjoy this hobby. But if you get too stuck on the industry stuff and all the bad things, it's important to be aware of them, no doubt, so you can protect yourself. But it's also important to find your path to hobby happiness within all of that messy stuff. Joe, what do you think?
I agree.
All right, go over.
Yeah. Hey, while we got a second, and I mean, I don't want to. I mean, yes, everything you said makes sense to me. I co-sign, I triple sign. I think there's a lot. You have to be both circumspect and do your research, as our friend Carvin Chung always used to say. But I want to congratulate you, Jay Lee, and also the good folks at Clubhouse, between Mike, Adam, and Greg, for bringing you on. That I was doing yard work today. I was like pulling weeds and everything, and then to hear the breaking news, like all of a sudden, like news flash across, almost like an alert on my phone. And then next thing I know, I'm like this special drop. So that's super exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what can happen on this alternative network. I don't know what you call it exactly. It's sort of like, it's not Sports Cards Live, but now it's a satellite potentially, and cross-pollinating with some really cool dudes and content creators. So congratulations, kudos, mazel tov, and let's go.
Well, yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited to be a part of it and provide some and create some content for that group. I think it will be good. I think the Sports Cards Live brand will be exposed to some new people, and I hope to expose some of the Sports Cards Live audience to what's going on the Sports Card Clubhouse, because I like these guys. I like Mike and Greg's content and Adam's content. And Adam does a show with Dylan, your good surfer buddy.
Yeah, I like them together. They're really good. And what I was going to ask though is, do you feel like Clubhouse, is it sort of known as a vintage station?
I don't know. It might be. I think Mike Junkwax Hero, he collects non-vintage. I know Greg collects non-vintage as well as vintage. I know I collect modern and vintage. I don't really I have some ultra modern too, I suppose. So I don't really personally have that perception of it, but not to say that I might be in the minority there.
Right. Yeah, no. And I think Adam has like a 52 mantle. But I think he also does some modern stuff. I think I've heard him talking with Dylan about like modern baseball stuff. So anyway, super exciting. Doesn't really matter, but I'm curious, kind of how the brand emerges now with this merger.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's separate from Sports Cards Live, just like it's separate from Midlife Cards and Junk Wax Hero and Splendid Sports. Like it's its own thing, but it's a come together of a lot of the four of us now. And I mean, it's weird. It's weird to say we and us because it's so new for me, but I'm excited.
Well, and from what I'm getting, I mean, I had no clue that this was happening. I mean, all of this emerged quite suddenly, right?
Very suddenly. I'd say it's less than 48 hours from a seedling in my brain to an agreement to terms and everything. So Yeah, we'll be doing the Sports Cards Live Hangover on the Sports Card Clubhouse network, on that YouTube channel, on that podcast. That content will not appear on Sports Cards Live YouTube or podcast. So in a way, I'm now asking everyone who subscribed to SCL, go subscribe to the Sports Card Clubhouse. Not only will you find more of the Sports Cards Live type content, but you'll find other content. And it's not just the partners that are in on. It's not just me, Greg, Mike, and Adam. There are other contributors. If you go to sportscardclubhouse.com, there's like a contributors page. You'll see everyone who's on there. And who knows, Joe, maybe one day we'll see your picture on there. I mean, this is a growing network and suite of content options.
Well, I definitely want to be on the Hangover for sure, because it is sometimes the case that, we have topics that we don't get to do full justice to. So, having a parking lot, so to speak, where we put things where, maybe that's a hangover moment, maybe I'll see you at the Hangover, or, how's your hangover?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very encouraged and just super happy about the whole thing. It's always nice to come together with friends and try to, just do something that's going to enhance your own experience as well as those of others. So I'm excited. Do you have another topic at all, jokes? I want to do. No,
let's roll. You got it. Go.
Well, just some more comments from the past discussions here. Mollico says, who is the fella that posted a few years back a fair amount of big vintage cards he trimmed that received PSA 10s? I forgot his name, but Desert Shield Sniper reminds us that was Evan Mathis, who he was an ex-NFL player, but he also had a kind of a moment of hobby fame when a reel he shared went viral in the hobby, as he explained how to trim a card, basically. And I don't think a lot of people took kindly to that. Desert Shield Sniper, though, also points out the number of auto pens that get passed by PSA as authentic or get graded. So an auto pen is not the athlete didn't put pen to paper, a machine did, based on replicating that person's signature. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for as well. All right.
Just getting back, I mean, Brett's not here, but I have found the whole, taste, like how much are we subject to, other people's opinions, like that, kind of distilling it down, a very large and complex conversation. And I think it's a very appropriate conversation, even though I understand the resistance to like, nope, I'm not, susceptible to any. But when you look at the hobby sort of in the kind of industry, really, there's so many pockets. I don't know if category is quite the right word, pockets that where you do see that, where you see kind of people, and myself included, but being a little, susceptible to like, what's the new shiny thing? What's the flavor of the month? What might be catching fire and you don't want to miss out due to FOMO. So I don't know, Jaylee, I don't think you had a chance to really weigh in on that. What do you think ultimately about this kind of idea of taste, sort of intrinsic taste versus being susceptible to kind of things that are going on around? And it's not always content. Sometimes it really is just, it could be at a show. You could be at a show and see things going on. So
I think I have an answer for that, Joe. I think I have a new hobby term that can help people. It helps me understand this. I'm gonna coin the phrase latent taste. This is something that you don't know you're gonna like until you see it. So there's a lot of latent taste welling up inside of me, but I don't know that it's there because I haven't seen what's going to tap into that. And I think a lot of us have that. If you are open to new things, you probably have some latent taste buried inside of you. And once you are exposed to that card, that story behind the card, that insert set, that parallel, whatever it might be, anything that you look at and you have some sort of physical response in your belly, you know, that is a card tapping into this latent taste that is in you, but you didn't even know how it was going to manifest and come up as being something that could actually guide you down your next hobby lane or rabbit hole. We talk a lot about we being the hobby. There's talk about lane. Greg talks about lanes. I talk about lanes. It's going to be a part of an upcoming version of the hobby spectrum. Lanes. I'm in many, people say stick to your lane. I'm like, screw that. I'm changing lanes. I'm what's it called? Like weaving out of my lane. I'm drifting into other lanes and seeing if there's something that sticks. And when something sticks, I can go all in. I found 2 new lanes last year and I'm like all in on them now. You know, it's not like I'm still in on everything else. But so I don't know. To me, Joe, that's what it is. It's one thing to be so proud and to say, I only like what I like. Nobody can have any influence on me. That's it. No influence, nothing. I'm me. I'm strong. Okay. That's a way to live. And maybe it's a way to live in many. You know, if all you eat is cheese pizza, you might never realize that pepperoni's delicious, you know, especially if it's on top. So, yeah, latent taste, Joe. Chris has joined us. Let's bring Chris on to join this discussion. Chris is good to go. Welcome, our friend. How are you?
Good to be back.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Christina says that I am swerving all over the place out here. Absolutely. Mookie says I turned off lane assist. Check your blind spot. Absolutely. Joe, I've been talking about this. And Chris, I assume you heard this phrase I just brought up, latent taste, where we are open to new things. As Joe, let's go back to Joe, then we'll go to Chris.
Oh, I love it, Jay Lee. I think having observed a few of your, you know, latent taste moments, you know, going down rabbit holes like the vintage mem, or you know, mid-modern vintage mem that sort of, you know, tickled your fancy there at the West Coast Card Show. And that's exciting. Like it's exciting to sample and or take a few steps into certain areas that maybe are somewhat new, and they can actually help you sort of, even if you don't go super deep, they can inform your other areas of taste, right? Like there's this kind of way that our influences start to influence the other areas of our collecting. And I think it's great that you're not constrained to that. And I'm certainly not constrained. I mean, I probably should be a little more constrained from time to time, because I do get enchanted with some new possibility. You know, I was on the verge of buying a you know, Blackbeard card at one point with you know, our friends Greg's influence to some degree. I mean, just seeing that was a beautiful card. So yeah, I don't want to be confined, and I'm probably susceptible to some degree to external forces, but I also know that sometimes things just make sense to me when I see and or have information, and you know, it's a combination, all of the above, pretty much all of the above.
Absolutely. And you know, just like we can be swayed by other people collecting, and I love when that happens. I love when I'm swayed by someone else's show and tell. I'm like, wow, maybe that's for me. But just as often I see people collecting things and showing them, like, nope, not for me, don't like it, not interested at all. That happens way more, which is maybe why I'm almost waiting for somebody to show me something that gets me excited, gets the juices flowing, the hobby, the card juices flowing again. So yeah, well, I agree. I like how you put that, Joe. Before we go to Chris, because he's still processing, I'm going to read a couple of comments. First, I want to say hi to Tim, Giants fan, had me on his show not too long ago. Big Giants fan, Tim. Hope you are well. But then Jim Define Sportive says the Sports Card Clubhouse breaking news is one of those events we'll all remember where we were when the news broke. Yeah, not so sure about that. And Double O's card guy, my guy Jesse says that Jeremy has opened his eyes to non-rookie cards. He's calling it the non-rookie revelation. I'm loving the non-rookie revelation, Jesse. Absolutely. Bob Boozle says, don't put Jeremy in a box, bro. No, please do not. Or a corner. Don't put me in a corner either. Okay. Before we go to Chris, Michael Rader says you create a connection to the content creators you like to watch or listen to, and those people naturally influence you through stories and showing cool cards. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with it, I don't think, at all. Okay. Chris, let's get your first, substantive comments of the episode.
All right. Well, let's not set the bar too high, but we'll give it a try.
All right.
So, latent taste. Okay. What does that say? What does that say, Jeremy?
V friends. Skeppy was asking what t-shirt I was wearing today, so I was just showing him. It's
Sorry,
the midlife cards. It's not latent taste, it's latent taste.
Latent, not Sheldon.
No, latent, as in undiscovered, as in the seed that is yet to sprout.
Although Leighton Sheldon has great taste.
That's a whole other episode we could do.
That's a whole series. Okay. All right. So latent taste. All right. So I had a clarifying question. Does that mean that you heard of this collecting lane other times? Maybe it was in your peripheral, but it just didn't catch you, or you didn't gravitate to it at that moment. And then later something sort of clicked when it got presented to you. And then it was just like a very timely, fortuitous moment. What's the word that starts with an S that like describes when everything happens perfectly together? Serendipitous. So was it a serendipitous moment?
No.
Or Jeremy, or is it that you had never been exposed to this lane of collecting before, and then when you finally were for the first time, it was love at first sight? Is that latent taste?
Brett, sorry, Chris, it could be either. It could be either or both. The way I'm describing latent taste is that latent taste to me is something that I don't know I'm going to like until I see it either for the first time or again, maybe through a different lens of maybe I'm a different mood, a different mindset. And I see them. I've been aware of memorabilia cards of vintage players, vintage memorabilia cards, basically like vintage player memorabilia cards from the year, say around 2000. I've been aware that these have existed for 25 years. I just never dove in until I saw a display of them at the West Coast Card Show, and my latent taste was awoken. Something about that display screamed at me and made me see it, and it made my latent taste. What's the opposite of latent? It came about. So whether I'd seen it before or not isn't really the issue. It's taste that you are just, whenever you see it, you're now ready to pounce and go jump into that rabbit hole.
Okay, so not to beat this up too much, that is what we do here, though, to Brett's point. If you had stumbled into this exact lane in the exact same setting with the exact same dealer, the exact same context, but it was 10 years ago, do you think your response to that would have been the same? Or maybe would you have not been as open to it at that, or maybe not, you would not has liked it as much perhaps at that time?
Absolutely, 100% possible. That goes into the evolution of me as a collector. I won't say all collectors, but me and many others, I'm sure, where you're just not ready for it at that time. You're not, just like when you're looking for love, you might not be ready for it when it comes to, two people. The timing is just wrong, sort of thing. The timing was wrong for me in vintage memorabilia cards in the year 2005, but in 2026, the timing was right for whatever reason. So I hope that sort of answers your, as I think you're trying to kind of form some sort of a path to go down here.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, this is it's as interesting to me. I agree. I think you've put your finger on a really interesting part of collecting psychology, but what's as equally interesting is also what enables that to be able to happen in the first place. And I think part of that is this. All right, I'm going to tie together two different ideas that have been percolating in the show. One, when you were talking to what you were talking with Joan, when you were talking with Brett, and sort of the idea of influence was coming up, and sort of Jeremy, I love how you zag on the influence topic, and you're like, hey guys, I like to take good ideas from other people. When in what other walk of life is it ever harmful to take a good idea from somebody else? And I think that's kind of like a general philosophy that you have that works in the hobby context. It works in many contexts. And so, and you even alluded to it at the very outset of the show. You were kind of like, hey, like if we can do a lot of good research now and that saves people time in the future, that'd be great. Or there's the science cliche of standing on the shoulders of giants and so on and so on, right? And so I like your spin on that. And I actually think that it can be so helpful to actually call out when somebody is inspiring us or planting a seed or giving us some direction. And Brett actually had a tangent on the most recent football card podcast where he sort of shouts out a collector who his Instagram handle is Bye Bye Baby Cards, and his name is Andy, and many of us know him. And Andy is a trailblazer of his own. And I've taken, and so following your lead, I'd like to say that I've taken inspiration from him to identify new collecting lanes in the very recent past. And then now I'm going to tie that, and in particular, that lane is one of ones from 90s football products, which is just such an interesting rabbit hole that I've been going down for the last week or so. And I've learned a lot from him, and I've taken inspiration from him, and I've been chatting a lot with him and a few other guys about that. So I want to tie that idea into this idea of latent taste or latent discovery or latent taste, or something just like when you see something, it makes sense, and get to the mechanism. And I think the mechanism of why that works is that, like, I'll give you my personal example. I would fly by these cards at a card show that now I know all about these cards from studying them for a week. A month ago, I would have just walked right by them at a card show and been none the wiser. Like Collector's Edge, what is this? The score cards from 90s football and stuff, like, because my 90s knowledge is centered on Michael Jordan collecting. Collector's Edge didn't have an NBA license in the 90s, so I didn't know. This is my first exposure to products from that brand, period. But all of a sudden, because I've sort of gone down the rabbit hole of learning about it, then I go back to eBay or go back to the card show, and I go and I scroll the same exact display cases or the same exact listings, and all of a sudden they mean something to me. All of a sudden they're calling out to me. All of a sudden there's a familiarity that wasn't there before, and now I'm really excited about something. Or I'll give another example. Today I was browsing the page of a different great collector, and I go back and I browse this guy's page every few months. And every time a different card or a different set of cards jumps out to me, I was like, I didn't even know that was there. Even though I know that his page hasn't changed, it's been the same post for years. But I'll scroll through it, and because of new research that I'm doing or a new era that I'm focusing on, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, that card jumps out to me. I didn't even know he had that card. How special is that? So I think I want to get to the mechanism of latent taste and see what you think about this, Jeremy. I think there has to be some sort of familiarity bred that creates the fertile soil that opens our mind and prepares our mind to accept seeing something new and exciting. But there has to be seeds planted first, and taking good ideas from fellow collectors is one way to do that.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is that, and like you said, you notice these things you go to somebody's page, you see these cards, but you don't see them. And then you go 3 months later, you see them and you're interested, because what has changed? You talk about this the fertile soil kind of analogy you made. I think what's changed is your lens. You've taken off the old pair of glasses, you put on a new pair of glasses that allow you, because you've changed. You've sparked new interests in your own collecting style that have caused you to see that differently. Happens all the time to I think to many people. Happens to me all the time. I never cared about Pacific patch cards that were the Pacific card brand that existed in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I ignored that manufacturer for many, many years. Now I don't. Now I'm kind of all about it. And I went down that lane when I saw a collection of them. I actually acquired a collection of them. I'm going to start shopping from my own inventory, and I did, and I love it. And I'm still adding. You go back like 15 years earlier, I might not have even acquired the collection, but I did, and I think it, quite simply, the lens through which you are looking has changed. You haven't changed, Chris. You're still open-minded and inquisitive, but now you're wearing a different set of glasses and you're seeing them differently, or even you're picking them up for the first time. You're not only like you're receiving that signal from that page, and it's enabling you to then jump into that rabbit hole a little bit. So that's how I kind of respond to what you just said. Before we continue, let's welcome Joshua Adams back to the show. I brought him on very clandestinely, very quietly. Josh, hello.
Hi, guys. Good evening. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too, our friend. Welcome. So before we go back to you, Chris, get Joe's thoughts, I'm going to quickly read 2 comments that I think we could both maybe incorporate in the next, or at least consider as we continue this discussion. Jim Define Sports says, it's like tasting something new. You can't know what you don't know until you are aware. Agreed. Skeppy then says, can the latent taste end up being a sour tasting journey into the rabbit hole? Can latent taste be a compromise to a taste you can't afford? How long does a new taste last before you know it isn't real? Yeah, great. I think that's a great question. And I think the proof's in the pudding. Like, I'm still very excited about my 2 lanes that I discovered my taste for in the past, 10 months. One being Pacific hockey patches, one being vintage baseball memorabilia cards. So I'm still and it's not just baseball. I'm doing basketball and football too. I'm loving this stuff right now. So, but Skeppy's question or his comment here is one where, yeah, be careful. I think the way to handle that is take that like 24-hour pause before you really start diving in with your money and much of your time. If you wait a couple days before you buy it, are you still going to want it in a couple of days? I would just recommend that sort of process to Skeppy and anybody else before you dive right in, because you could dive right in and realize a few days later, I was wearing those glasses, but they were a little fuzzy. They were a little foggy, and I wasn't really seeing myself properly either. Call it like the beer bottle. What I forget what they call them at the bar. That whole thing about going to anyway. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. We're gonna bring David Chase on as well, but before we do, I want to go around the horn on this topic, and then we'll bring David on. So who's gonna go first here? Joe. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I just think that your particular interest in the early 2000s mem cards, if I had to sort of probe into what the architecture or the maybe the expressed desire that you had, it's like we've been seeing the jackies and the satchels, all these cards just go off the hook with some of their values. And so then kind of stepping back over there and looking at, game used mem of these guys that are coming from the 40s and the 50s, hugely important. Like, to me, it made all the sense in the world. And so some of it is the context of the hobby's evolution, like where things are going, and then finding the kind of auxiliary or adjacent categories that may be a little, like, now in hindsight, like, oh, now we can look at this and say, for Hoj, like, oh, I'm really into Jordan 101s. What other 101s are out there? Oh, what do you know? And you start to compare the value proposition for what you're doing or what you've been doing or what you'd like to do. And you see this other lane, and it's just like, it's a no-brainer almost. It's like, of course I would, go push in a little bit and dabble, if not fully dive in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good advice right there. Josh, you got any thoughts on this topic, please?
I'm a little confused as to what exactly we're talking about here. So what's the point, I guess, is my first question.
Yeah, that's fair. You kind of came in the middle of it, so that's a fair position to have right now. Yeah, I don't even know where we started this one at.
Okay.
Let's go to Chris for a moment. Let's go to Chris to get follow up to all this. David, are you good to join us on the screen? He is, so we'll bring David on. He's been listening astutely, so maybe David could even steer us back to where we started. But let's go to welcome back, David, by the way.
Thank you.
Chris, are you good to jump back in?
Yeah, I have two more questions. And they're related. I am just going to ask both. And then, Jeremy, I want to kick them to you, but also to the panel. So the first question is, when latent taste is activated, does it ever put for you? I mean, this will probably be different for everybody, but does it ever push the other lanes that you collect to the background a little bit? Does it?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does it do it a little bit? Does it do it a lot? Does it ever even push the other lanes completely out of the picture? And then my second question, which is related, is I'm going to add a new word to the Sports Cards Live Rolodex. I think maybe Joe's used this word before. Is latent taste teleological? And what I mean by that is, does latent taste mean that if I suddenly discover something and it really calls out to me and speaks to me and commands my attention, is that because I've become a better collector? Is it because I've evolved as a collector? Is it because my knowledge has expanded, my palette has been further refined, and so necessarily the older things that I collected are just maybe prior, more simple, more primitive versions of my collecting self? And am I ultimately, as a collector, continuously gathering new information, improving my taste, and evolving to some final perfect version of a collector? Like, am I on a course to eventually become this perfect collector, and each time something really calls out to me, a new lane, a new type of card, is it activating in me another level of myself as a collector? So 2 questions there, Jeremy, and I want to kick that right to you.
That is so heavy, Chris, so heavy. So the first one, can a latent taste that has been awoken drive out an existing lane that you're in, or kind of push it off an exit from the highway, maybe to be brought back on later on, I suppose. And I can only really speak to my own experience on that. And I love collecting vintage baseball. I love collecting hockey auto patches. I'm still hyper focused on both of those lanes, even though I've added 2 new lanes that were in my latent taste arsenal, or buried in there, but didn't wake up until they did. And so I think for me, they haven't pushed out anything else. I have, it's kind of like friends. I'm never at my maximum for friends. I can have more friends. I can add more friends to my life. That's Josh. That's just Josh. I'm just a friendly guy, buddy. That's just how I am. All right. I can have more friends all the time. I think I'm similar with cards. As long as my budget can allow for it, I can like many different cards. And I do. I often say I collect from 1888 to 2026, all sports, non-sport. Like, I like a lot of cards, to my wallet's dismay, unfortunately. So I don't know. The other thing I'll mention is that vintage hockey. I've been a vintage hockey collector forever. And since 1989, I got into vintage hockey. I'm at a point now where I'm kind of done. There's nothing I'm looking for. Almost nothing I covet. I don't think there's a single vintage hockey card on my want list right now. So it's not that I'm not focused on it. I still enjoy the cards I have there, but that category is no longer taking up any of my budget or really my discovery time. So I had the room to add a couple of new lanes, I would say. And lucky for me, I was able to discover them. From a teleological perspective, which I have looked up so I can understand it, and you did a pretty good job of explaining it. But the way the definition I'm looking at, it says describes explanations or systems that are driven by purpose, goal, or ultimate design rather than by cause and effect. And don't even know if I understand that clearly right now without further sort of dumbing it down for me, Chris. So I think I actually need to kind of take a pass on that, or at least maybe ask you to further clarify or just serve it up to me a bit differently, if you don't mind.
Yes, especially in service of the great Mike Petty, who advises to drop the vernacular. And anytime Mike Petty gives advice, I listen. Let me do a better job of communicating. What I'm trying to get at there is when we move into another lane, is it a sideways step? You know, one day I'm here, the next day I'm over here, the next day I'm over here. I'm not getting better or advancing as a collector necessarily. I'm just interested in something new for a little while. Or when we get into a new lane, is it a step forward and we leave behind us the other lanes? Now the other lanes are something in the rear view. It's a more simple version of ourselves. And eventually I'm going to keep stepping and stepping and stepping until I can't step forward anymore. Whereas where you're stepping from side to side, you can always keep stepping from side to side. It's just, you know, you're never really moving forward. You're not moving back. You're just changing your point of view.
Yeah, it's a constant evolution of curation and interest. I think it comes down to evolving as a person in the hobby, Chris. So like I'm always doing a mental audit of my collection, being, do I still love you? Do I still love you? Do I still love you? And as long as I do, I keep you. And many cards I own have survived that chopping block hundreds of times. They've survived for decades and remained in my collection because they're not being replaced by the next shiny type of card I'm pursuing or chasing. So I think it's a bit of a hybrid. I think sometimes it can replace because you might be tired of something. Maybe you didn't love it as much as you thought you did, or you just simply fell out of love with a certain sub PC, a certain lane you're in. So I don't think there's one answer to that question. I think it's going to depend on the collector and even the various PCs within their overall collection that they have, how long they've been collecting them, how much do they love them, all these different sorts of things. So I think that answers your question. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to hear from some of the other people now, if we can. So we got Joe and Josh looking like they might fall asleep momentarily. David, I'm kidding. You're all good. David, I think you just put up your hand there. Please jump in.
Sure. So my latent taste has changed from the beginning. Also, I really went from, just like you, Jeremy, vintage baseball was kind of my the groundwork for my collecting. I went very hard into vintage football and basketball for a while until I picked up a lot of those cards, which I didn't have as extensive of a list as it has been for baseball. So I was able to kind of conquer that list over a couple of years. And kind of like what you said, like with your vintage hockey, there's only a couple of cards left that I really want there. So it's allowed me to pass on, but it definitely took place. And it was my number one priority for a while. After that, I kind of went into the more popular oddball sets that just kind of, I didn't know really about them back in the day, right? I really only knew about Topps and Bowman and Play Ball and Gowdy. So when I learned about Dandies and Red Hearts and Wilson Franks, those also caught my attention. And then I was hyper focused on those. But I still always had the baseball vintage as my base. And then even later on, I kind of swerved to the pre-war, partly because I felt like I needed to learn more about it. And the T206s, I went in, I ended up buying a few of those cards. I really liked a lot of them. But to be honest with you, it wasn't really my lane. And even though I tried it, I haven't felt the passion for it as much as I felt like I should. So I dipped my toe in. I tried it. I liked it. I swerved away. And now I'm kind of starting to dip my toe into a lot more non-sports vintage just to kind of, but I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go because I don't really care about political things, but I care about more pop culture things. So I'm just kind of trying to figure that out right now. And I'm swerving. I'm going back. I'm going forth, but I always have my base as my vintage baseball because it's such an extensive amount of cards for me to go through where I don't feel like I'm like getting to an end as I am with some of the iconic other versions of the lanes that I'm going through.
I think what you're talking about is the process of discovery. You are trying things and realizing some are sticking and some aren't, and you continue with the ones that stick and you're moving on from the ones that don't. That is just discovery. That's being human, being a collector, being open-minded, being willing to try new things. So I think what you said is a very natural evolution, David. And I feel like I've gone down that same path. You know, sometimes you want to try something too because you see other people doing it and you think, oh, maybe that's the thing. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay, here's a non-card analogy. Wine, the beverage, wine. Everybody I know seems to love wine and they're all wine connoisseurs and they swirl it like this and they do all these things with their tongue for it. So I'm like, when I remember 20 years ago, I'm like, I guess I got to get into wine. I want to be a part of the. I want to have my friend. I want to be a part of the conversation. Couldn't get into it. It's not my thing. I just couldn't get into it. I have nothing against people who drink wine, but it's just not for me. So I've moved on from that attempt. But I know what you mean. Where sometimes you just want to try because maybe some of your friends or the people you respect, you adore, you follow, you like, whatever it is, are doing it, and maybe you want to try it. I see some people I see Laura brings up Meatloaf, the band Meatloaf. I mean, music's another area. Chris can speak to music where, everyone was into heavy metal when I was in grade 7 in 1984. And it's like, could I get into the heaviest of the heavy metal? Not really. I like Def Leppard back in the day and, Twisted Sister. I could listen to, We're Not Going to Take It over and Pour Some Sugar on Me over and over and over and over and over again. Love those songs. You give it a try, you realize maybe it's not for you. Same thing happened to me with country. So I'm just saying we have to, like someone said in the chat, you don't know you don't like it until you try it, or at least give it a bit of an effort. And then you're like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. And sometimes you're doing that because you want to fit in. Sometimes you're doing that because you're genuinely curious. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. I would just say, I say it to myself, just be honest with yourself and don't try to do something that's not meant for you. David, you put up your finger. I want you to go, but go quick so we can get around the horn, please.
I also just think that even the lanes that I swerved out of, like the T206s, I feel like it really fulfilled me still because it allowed me to really understand other people's collections and their styles and what I really love about that set. There are really cool things about the set, even though it's not for me. So I just want to say that even though I think it really brings you further along the journey when you do learn about these things, even if it's not a lane that you don't follow through with.
It helps you at least eliminate and narrow your scope so you can have more focus for something else. At least let's get that one out of the way and try something different if we need to. Okay. Joe, you're off mute. The other fellows are on. Do you have any thoughts on this? And Josh, will come to you. Hopefully you have more context now for the topic. I'm sorry for throwing that at you earlier. Let's go to Joe.
Well, I think there were two questions posed, so I'll start with the first. Does when the latent sense taste is expressed or activated, does that push to the background some of your other collecting interests? And I would say for me, on a practical level, yes, mostly because of funds and capital and being able to put money in. You can only make so many deals in your ongoing flow of cash and deployment of your resources. So I don't know if it necessarily fundamentally changes anything. I mean, that's sort of what you were speaking to, Jeremy, of going back again and reviewing your collection with a sort of rigorousness where do I love you still? Do I love you still? I do that as well. And sometimes the new activation does have some bearing on that, because if I like the new activation, the latent taste that's emerging so much, I might have to actually dip into some of the things. And so ipso facto, that would be a moment where the old is supplanted by the new. And that's where, we get into that acorn into an oak idea. But moving to the next question, the teleological question, I'm split on that one. I kind of feel like it's probably the case that it does shape you ultimately. I mean, we could say yes, it's just a dabble here and a dabble there, but I don't know, guys. I'm almost 60, so like I'm getting to the point where what I'm doing now, that's where I'm at. You know, it's not like a passing phase. It's kind of like every day, every hour, every moment is the emerging of reality, and I don't have a whole lot of time to look back or even really look forward. So I would say yes to the teleological question, that it is essentially dictating where I'm going as a collector. It is forging new territory. It is expressing a new bent. It doesn't necessarily exclude the old, but it's certainly either broadening or in some way evolving the expression of my collecting sensibility.
It's another great sort of angle to look at it, is where are we at, not just in our hobby journey, but in our life's journey, and also mentally, like what do you have the capacity to do, not just mentally and budgetarily, as you mentioned. Of course, like I love when I'm doing my Fanatics Collect weekly Sunday shows and the premiere show, and I'm like, I've said it several times, like, sure wish I had $100,000 to spend tonight, because I could do that no problem. I could, never mind $100,000, I could go $500,000 or a couple mil if I had the funds. I don't, so I can't. But boy, would I love to be able to do that every Sunday and just go to town. But that's not where I'm at in life. So you don't. You have to. That we do have constraints in place, and that's gonna. But it doesn't mean that you don't want to, or that you wouldn't if you couldn't. So those are just constraints that we have that force us to really put blinders on somewhat in many cases. So, Josh, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I guess for Chris's first question, yes, it would have to, right? You evolve as a collector. I mean, I just collect stuff I like. I don't really put too much thought into it. I'm like, this is cool. I like it. I like baseball history. I like hockey history. I like stuff from the 90s when I was a kid, so I buy it. And like, that's the extent of the thought I put into collecting cards, because I like them. Secondly, his second question, I guess, yes, you have to, right, put stuff to the side, and because you said you only have that much money to spend on things. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just like collecting because it's fun, and it evolves. Like if I liked vintage cards, and I'm like, well, I'm sick of collecting run-of-the-mill 50s and 60s stuff, because you can find a Mickey Mantle any day of the week. Like, okay, so I like finding like Wilson Franks, Red Hearts, test strips, Hires test strips, some other really rare, cool things. I think it's called Lakeside Bank, is a 1961 football set of the Cleveland Browns. That's pretty cool. So I just like stuff, and just buy stuff I like.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Buy stuff that you like. Sometimes we often come back to collect what you like, and then in a Chris Hoge style way, it's like, well, why do we like what we like? Or are you sure you like it? I'm not saying Chris says that, but it's something that I could see him really diving into, just out of it from his the curious nature of his mind. Chris.
Yeah, love the comments. Joe, I had other comments, but Joe actually said everything that I wanted to say. So kudos to Joe. And then to Josh, okay. So I love what Josh said. I think that's a very real point of view. I once on the crossover many years ago, I said that I like the caveman style of collecting. Me see card, me like card, me buy card, and that's it. Okay, but I don't really do that. I don't do that one anymore, which it makes it even more funny. But let me go there. Skeppy sent a comment that I just thought was so engaging, where he said, "I get tired of lanes." And Jeremy, do you want to read that comment? And I want to comment on it.
Sure. He says, I get tired of lanes. It involves structure that feels more like a battle than enjoyment. I try to just let something happen when I see a card I like. Why can't we just like stuff without analysis? And I mean, I just got to say, because I see what he's saying. That's a style of collecting, but I don't agree with that. For me, it doesn't work for me. Why? I like my cards to have company. If I just have one card, it feels like a floater. It feels alone. It feels isolated. And I don't know why it belongs. I need my cards to belong to a collection within the collection. That's why, when I go get into vintage baseball memorabilia cards, I don't want just one. I want a stack. That's how I enjoy cards. So Skeppy's comment, it must be a bit different because to me, sure, there's structure. It's direction more than structure to me. There's no battle. It's all enjoyment. It does, but I can also, like he says, it can just happen when I see a card I like. I can add it to that collection. So there's no real that I do just like stuff, and there's really no analysis going on. So the comment, maybe I'm missing the point of the comment or your angle on it, Chris, but lanes to me are what it's all about. I love lanes.
That's why I love the comment. The comment is very provocative. It's also coming from a great place, a great philosophical point of view. I actually liked the end of it, which is where Skeppy says, why do we even need analysis at all? And I love it because it lets me do a little rant, a little riff. And I love the comments. I love all of Skeppy's comments. He's a real value add to any chat that he's in. Absolutely. And so it was so provocative, and I liked it because, okay, so in the realm of philosophy, this will be very brief, there's something called the problem of global skepticism. A global skeptic is somebody who believes that knowledge is impossible. But if you believe that knowledge is impossible, then you can't actually believe that knowledge is impossible, because believing knowledge is impossible is a piece of knowledge, right? So it's self-refuting. The problem of global skepticism. And here, this is a relative of that, because what Skeppy just offered was analysis. In order to opt out of analysis, he offered analysis. Analysis is sneaky. Once the bug of analysis has been contracted, the only way to opt out of it is just literally to not analyze. But if you analyze the analysis that somebody else is doing, even if the conclusion of it is we should analyze less, you're still analyzing. You still are actually, it's actually a self-defeating proposition as well. And I think that caught me as a collector at some point, and I just sort of gave in to the fact that, all right, I did contract the virus of analyzing. I need to keep going with it and keep analyzing things and analyzing. And eventually I think it does lead to a good place, but it does involve battles, and it isn't always sunshine and flowers. There are struggles that go with it too, but I like the struggles personally.
The battles that you mention, I think, can often just be, which lane do I deploy capital into in terms of where, or allocate card budget? Do I go with a modern auto patch and hockey, or for $2,000, or do I buy a nice 48 leaf Musial, which I'd like to add for $2,000? Like, that's the battle. It's choosing. It's really, the battle is prioritization of hobby budget into what card and it could also be within the same set. Do I go buy my 48 leaf Jackie or my 48 leaf Satchel? Which is the higher priority? I think we're always, if you're under a budget constraint, which all of us are, except for a few people, you are always in a battle. Never mind within the hobby. What about going on that vacation or buying that card? How many people have that battle? Probably more than we'll admit, because you don't want to ever say the cards override a vacation. But I mean, I remember going through a phase of my life when I was single, thinking to myself, I'm going to go on a vacation. Great. But when I get back, I have nothing but the memory. I could have a card, Now, I understand experiences and all that, but I had that mindset at one time where it's like, no, I want to buy cards because that's what I wanted. I don't need to explain it. That's what I wanted. So yeah, it is I like how you said it too, Chris, that Skeppy's comment there is a provocative comment. And I think it's got merit. I think there's some merit to it, but I don't think it's merit across the board. What is right for you as a hobbyist, as a collector, and proceed accordingly and discover yourself through being open-minded. That's advice I'm willing to give, advice I'm not to get into. I forget where this was talked about last, Chris. I was here on Sports Cards Live. When is advice when can we give advice? Solicit it around. We had that whole conversation. That's a piece of advice I'm willing to share. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Please don't. It's not a directive. As most things I say aren't.
Just real quick, Jay Lee, if you're collecting at a serious level, you're gathering information, you're researching. It would be almost foolish not to. Like you want to know or understand what you're getting into. And then when you have information, like, what do you do with it? Like, you could not analyze it. You could try not to analyze it, but invariably humans are meaning making machines. Like we're gonna make meaning of it. It's just kind of how we're wired. So I actually appreciate Skeppy's impulse to sort of stay pure, but I'm not sure, at least I guess I'm speaking out of my own experience. It would be very hard for me to pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Joe, Chris. We cannot be done with that, but I wanted to do a couple of comments here quick. First, Chad Shipper, who I had the pleasure of dining with Josh as well. Joe as well in the pan. Chris, we've all dined with Chad Shipper, but I just got to see him at the Toronto X. But anyway, says always a great lineup to close out SCL. Thank you, Chad. Cage says the hobby has broken me mentally. You wouldn't know that from listening to the Hobby with Cage daily podcast, which is in my rotation. And it's been high quality for the past several months. So thank you. Not to talk about earlier. Anyway, thank you, Cage. Midlife Greg says, hey, can we circle back to Jeremy's shirt? It is truly glorious. Greg. Jay Hawker says, collect what you like, but never be embarrassed to pivot. I really like, and then he says, don't box yourself in. I really like that comment. Don't be embarrassed to pivot. Like, really take that to heart. I think that's good advice. Do we like that advice, guys? Don't be embarrassed to pivot. Joe's snapping his fingers. Josh is giving a light nod. David is nodding. Chris is nodding and taking some notes. Okay, good. Thank you for those comments from Jay Hawker, Greg, Cage. Oh, wow. We got David Spinrad, the rated rabbi. What does he say? He says, Discovery and Focus are two wolves battling for my hobby soul. When I overfeed Discovery, I can't achieve my collecting goals. When I stay too focused, I miss out on the joys of exploration. There is a tension that I am sensing in this comment here. I think that's what he's referring to, is that tension between two ways of approaching the hobby, two immediate type of paths you're gonna go down, or a fork in the road. You have to choose a direction, and that's the battle. I think he articulated that battle quite well there. We're getting a thumbs up from Joe on that. So okay, lots going on for me right now as I'm running this show, guys. But is there any business left undone that we need to circle back to? Chris's questions that he posed. Does anyone else have any thoughts on those? I think Joe, David, myself, Josh might have all responded to those. If we're done with that, then I want to move on to a topic that's in the title tonight, which is safe versus bold collecting is in the title, but it really comes down to, does GOAT collecting, Jordan, Gretzky, Brady, Mantle, all these guys, is GOAT collecting equal to safe collecting? Is collecting GOATs always safe? Because you hear people say, when you're not sure what to do, if you're tired of the prospects, you can always go to the GOATs. My thoughts have always been that most GOATs have cards that are blue chip. A 52 tops Mantle, if we can call Mantle a GOAT, is a blue chip card. A Gretzky rookie, a blue chip card. A Jordan rookie XRC, a blue chip card. Most Mantle cards are blue chips. I say that, but that's what this is about. Is collecting GOATs insulating you from most of the risk of the hobby? That's a question I think that is worth asking and bantying about here. I've said a few things. Let's get somebody put up your hand if you want to. Who's ready to? Okay. Let's go to Joshua Adams first, and then we'll go to Joe Poirot.
If you're collecting for a financial reason, then yes, because I think that's obviously the basis for the question. So yeah, if you're looking at it from a financial point of view, that the money you're using you don't want to lose, then yes, you should buy the GOATs. But
let me just add a standard to this, I suppose, because I don't want to just turn this into investing versus collecting. I don't think that's that's where you're going to go, and that makes a lot of sense to me. That's where we go. But let's say that you can enjoy the collecting of the goats as much as you would enjoy collecting a non-goat, a prospect, for example. So it's not so to your not because to Josh's comment, it's not. Let's say you're not just collecting for money; you're collecting with financial responsibility in mind. Let's say, which maybe is the same thing you're saying, Josh.
Well, I'm responding to the question. The question was safe. What did you mean by safe? If safe you meant financially safe, that's how I took it. If you meant something else, I apologize.
No, that's exactly what it comes
Okay.
down to. So your response was, if you're collecting with money in mind, then yes, goats are the way to go. So you're saying that goat collecting is safe collecting.
Absolutely. But if you're collecting for fun, do whatever you want. I'll buy a ton of Murakami cards because he's having a great season for the White Sox until they trade him to the Dodgers in 2 weeks. But it'll be so. It depends on what the reason you're getting involved in the hobby is.
Well, Luke Browning says if money is your goal, safe collecting is great, but collecting what you want may or may not be safe. Absolutely. Tim says liking blue chip cards lately for possible index. Okay. And Jim here says collecting goats is like buying insurance, a very safe investment. Okay, let's go to Joe Poirot. Joe, are you going to be more than 90 seconds with this? You know what I'm getting at, probably.
I can go. Oh, yes, I can be well more than 90 seconds, maybe 95, 100
Thank
seconds.
you. 90s. All. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
You got you do your business. So yeah, I would respond in a general sense to this question as yes, with a big caveat that just goat cards. Not all goat cards are created equal. There's a lot of different ways to deploy your goat fundage, and so within that, I think there's ways that you can get into stagnant waters and find yourself sort of locked into something that maybe doesn't excite you all that much, but you did it because you felt like this was the blue chip opportunity, and then between fees and or a market that might go this direction or that direction, you have to get out of it. And it's like, well, did I really actually, was it a blue chip opportunity, or was it just something where I kind of got, a little simple in my own approach and ended up not, taking a bigger swing at the fence. So I would say that yes, and myself included, I've defaulted in the direction of goats for reasons of feeling secure, but at the same time, it's very important what type of goat cards you're actually targeting.
I completely agree with that last bit that I came back for. I think that's the nuance and the subtlety to all of this, is that just because there are goat cards that are not going to hold their value because they're overprinted, overgraded, and over is a weird term, but they're just heavily graded, heavily printed, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm sure I missed a lot of that, Joe, but I certainly resonated with the last part of it. I'm going to go to a comment from Jeff Hart, Patriot Sports Cards. A great collector says, you can overpay for goats based on where certain areas of the market are. So I don't think all is safe. However, I think the risk or downside can be less. That's a great perspective to take, is that, the risk can be less. There's less volatility, I think, is another way to look at it when it comes to the goats. They're going to more or less, their chart is going to more or less mirror the general economy versus what happened last night in the game or an injury or all these things that we do tend to talk about. Do we want to go to David Chase?
I mean, I have a very simple, fast answer to this. I mean, I kind of agree with Josh, where the goats are the most safe ways you can collect, but also what Joe said, the cards matter, right? So a Hoops Jordan card is probably not the safest investment in the world, but possibly a lot of his other cards are more. So if you want a safe investment, go for the best of all time. And I don't really collect prospects. So for me, I kind of look at that as the lesser tier all-stars and Hall of Famers are probably not as safe as the goats.
Yeah, that makes sense. Michael Rader here says every collection should include goats if you can afford them. There is great satisfaction in having goats in your collection. That's a personal comment, though. I think there is great satisfaction in having goats in your collection. Does that hold true for everybody? I have to think there are some people who collect players that they've met in person or saw play live in their hometown, maybe their college team, and they're not goats. They're far from goats. Maybe only you and their mother collects their cards, and that could be highly satisfying as well. So I appreciate the comment from Michael Rader, but I don't know if I totally agree that it's in the general way that it's worded, although I'm sure Michael Rader is smart enough to recognize that is not going to resonate with everybody. But I subscribe to what he's saying here. I get great satisfaction from having goats in my collection. And I think I could go as far as saying that almost every collection could have goats in it if those people were open to it. And I think many people are open to it. But yeah, just some comments on that. Jesse here says, does GOAT mean players or just the iconic cards? We're talking players in this case, Jesse. We're talking players for sure. Bob Boozle says, I collect Honus Wagners. Right now I have 0. The collection firm says, I've had a more exciting time the last decade collecting Jameis Winston and Cody Bellinger than I can ever imagine. It's wonderful, wonderful. And Bob Boozle says, I feel bad for LeBron collectors who are left out of this GOAT discussion. Ooh, low blow, Bob Boozle. Tim says, Kobe has way more collectability than LeBron. And I just got to say, I agree with that based on my observations I've made at recent shows where I've had in my showcases LeBrons, Jordans, Kobe's, Griffey's, Brady's, and Kobe is far and away asked about more than any other player in the hobby. I think from what I've seen, my perception is that Kobe is the number one player in the whole hobby. Not for value, not at GOAT status, none of that. Player that people want, hobby love. I think nobody gets more hobby love than Kobe Bryant right now. That's my personal experience this year, 2026. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me here tonight on Sports Cards Live. So far, that's it. Chris, what else is on you? I mean, this whole GOAT versus safe investing GOAT came up through a discussion we were having in a group chat, and Josh Adams says topic for Sports Cards Live. So that's what brought it up. So thanks to Josh. Yeah, Josh, you are the one who sparked this whole discussion. That was you, buddy. That was you.
I refresh my recollection on this one.
It's too late, buddy. Too late.
Right.
Too late for that. Hobby Champ says, I don't think it's fair to compare LeBron to Kobe in the hobby. Kobe wasn't all that collectible the last years of his career. We have to compare the times. No, we don't, Hobby Champs. We're talking about right now. I'm talking about right now. We cannot change the past. We can only impact the future, and we can only observe what's going on right now. I think it's totally fair to compare LeBron to Kobe in the hobby today. But I hear what you're saying in that you can't, things change, but that's just how it goes. Jeff says, once you dive deep into a player, there's GOATs of the GOATs, i.e. you learn what cards matter. Ooh, that's a Chris Hoge specialty right there, learning and doing your research into what cards truly do matter. Chris, what do you think? Any other thought, anything else going through that philosophical and inquisitive brain of yours right now?
Yeah, I have thoughts on this topic. So I think the financial, non-financial discussion is so interesting. And I think I can actually answer the financial question by explicitly not thinking about it in financial terms. What is it? Isn't this the question that's burning everybody? Why is it safe? Why is it safe in the first place that we can collect the quote unquote GOATs and that we should expect there to be less risk involved? Why is that the case? And I think it's the case for evolutionary and cultural reasons. I think it's safe So, for example, I was talking to somebody today. I was talking to a brand new collector today who was, asking me sort of, I want to collect Michael Jordan, and I'm thinking about Curry because I think Curry's going to be beloved 10 or 20 years from now. And I see you collect Jokic, but I'm worried he's going to be like Tim Duncan, and he's just going to fade from the limelight, and he's not going to be like a big culturally relevant figure and stuff. And totally valid concerns. But he was as much coming from a place of prudence and a place of fear that what if I pick the wrong guy that the group isn't going to go along with? And it comes back to the group. That's why I said evolution. That's why I said culture, evolutionary biology, evolutionary anthropology in particular, because why is there safety in consensus? Why do we even have consensus? Would we even have consensus if we didn't have the ability to look over to our left, what's he doing? Look over to our right, what's he doing? Oh, okay, so that can sort of set the guide for me. That can set the mold for me. So for example, why even is there a consensus GOAT? I know a guy who is a little bit older than me. He knows I'm a huge Michael Jordan acolyte, and this guy's a big Larry Bird guy. And he says, yeah, you like Jordan, but everybody knows that the refs gave Jordan all the calls. Everybody knows that Jordan played during a watered-down era, during an expansion era. And everybody knows that when Larry Bird played Michael Jordan in the playoffs, he swept him. And it was never even particularly close. So, yeah, Bird played in an earlier period than Jordan did, but Bird kicked Jordan's butt up and down the street. And it was never even particularly close between them. And you can even ask Jordan. He'll tell you that Bird kicked his butt too. So does Jordan have to be that guy's GOAT too? Does that guy have to go along with the rest of us and say Jordan's the GOAT? No, of course not. That guy can have his own opinion. And I think that if you wiped all of our memories and then started from scratch, and I can't know what Josh, what David, what Joe, and Jeremy thinks. I don't get to see you guys as like we're on Jeopardy, and they're like, okay, you don't know anything about the history of basketball. I'm going to let you look through the record books for a day, and then you have to come back and tell me who you think the GOAT is. And you don't get to see what any of your peers or contemporaries, you don't get to see what anybody else thinks. You just get to look at the record books, and you have to come up with your vote. I bet the five of us would come up with 5 different votes. But over time, maybe David would make a very compelling case for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and all of a sudden we'd all sort of start swaying in his direction. And before you know, there's going to be a consensus. And that's for evolutionary reasons. Going along with the group, being altruistic as opposed to being a lone wolf, being somebody who will sacrifice to go along to get along. There was always evolutionary advantages to that. Your genetics would pass along if you were able to find shelter and belong to the group. And so that's why I think there's a real mechanism there for why consensus even exists. But to the point here, I think if we all had a chance to come up with our own GOAT, somebody like, let's say David took Kareem, and he would say, look, Kareem has 6 regular season MVPs. Michael has 5, and nobody has more than 6. Okay. Kareem has more regular season MVPs. Or maybe Bob Boozle, because we know he loves LeBron. Bob would say, look, LeBron has 42,000 career points. He has more points than anybody. He has 10,000 more career points than Michael Jordan does. Or maybe Joe will take Wilt Chamberlain. He'll say, yeah, Michael Jordan was great. He had 10 scoring titles. You know, Wilt averaged 50 points in a season. How can you say Michael Jordan is better than a guy who averaged 50 points in a season? Or you can come to me and I can say, I can put on my nerdy glasses and say, Nikola Jokic has the highest advanced stats of any player ever. We will have all these debates. We'll all come to a guy who we think is the GOAT. And it's only through the social pressure, it's only through the culture, it's only through the community that we ultimately form a consensus around who it is. And then we have influencers. We have Stephen A. Smith. We have ESPN. We have the Talking Heads. We have Bill Simmons, who, then they coalesce and they form and the opinion crystallizes and becomes concrete. Then before you know it, we're all just sort of agreeing that, yeah, Michael Jordan's the GOAT. I'm going to read some stats and then I'm going to be done with this. Okay. I'm going to compare John Havlicek's career resume to Michael Jordan. This is a great meme. Every time this meme goes around, I think about this. John Havlicek made 11 All-NBA teams. Michael Jordan made 11 All-NBA teams. John Havlicek was a 13-time All-Star. Michael Jordan was a 14-time All-Star. John Havlicek has 8 championships. We know some guys who love the championship. Michael Jordan has 6. Havlicek was 8-0 in the NBA Finals. Michael Jordan was 6-0. Havlicek has 26,000 career points. Jordan has 32. Havlicek has 8,000 rebounds to Jordan's 6. Havlicek has 6,000 assists to Jordan's 5. and Havlicek had 31 triple doubles to Jordan's 28. Somebody could make the argument that John Havlicek is an all-time great. I think to bring this back home, this is the idea of consensus. This is the idea of how social pressure and evolutionary reasons and culture forces us all, for logical reasons, into a group belief. But I don't know that would be the case if we all were in our own vacuum. We had to do that thought experiment where we each had to pick the GOAT, and we didn't know what any of the others of us were going to pick.
Yeah, I mean, so consensus, we're talking a lot about consensus to arrive and determine who the GOAT or the GOATs are, which is based on a whole bunch of different filters and viewpoints and criteria based on who the voter really is, which tells me that if the consensus determines the GOAT, then consensus is more powerful than stats and accolades and all the things that you just went through, Chris, which is why in the hobby, there's two different discussions. Who's the GOAT of the sport for the stats and the accolades? And then there's who's the GOAT of the hobby, which is based on more than just stats and accolades. And that's when you bring in the intangible concept of hobby love, which is based on everything else. It includes stats and accolades, but it includes charisma. It includes highlight reels. It includes the influencers like the Stephen A. Smiths and the other people you mentioned, Chris, and what they've said about it, the influence that they've had. So I think there's so much more to determining who the GOAT or GOATs are than just consensus or just stats and accolades. I think it's a mix of all these things. Is it consensus or is it track record? Which one contributes more to determining where the consensus is even going to go or who the GOAT is? So I think there's a lot there. And I it brings me back to Hobby Champs' I think it was Hobby Champs who made the God, I got a few comments here. So I'm a little bit unorganized, guys, right now. As I was really honing in on what Hoj was saying and trying to formulate my own thoughts. But Kobe, it comes back to Kobe for a moment. And Ivor here says Kobe's premature death really elevated his collectability and status in the hobby. And it's Ivor here as well. If LeBron has a premature death like Kobe did, LeBron's card value would surpass Kobe. Kobe's hobby relevance and value increased after his passing. But that's what happened. That doesn't make him any less eligible for hobby GOAT status than Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, or Havlicek. It doesn't matter. All we have are the facts of the situational facts as they exist right now. Kobe died by a helicopter accident tragedy, shouldn't have happened. And if that's what gave him that iconic GOAT stat, almost like even whatever's higher than iconic, I don't know, godly sort of thing, it's that even enabled people to oversee some of his flaws, which someone called out in the chat somewhere. That's all that really matters right now. As far as the hobby goes, it doesn't matter that LeBron didn't get killed in a tragic helicopter accident. He didn't. Instead, he's doing things that are pissing people off left, right, and center, or so it seems is what I'm seeing. That is maybe maybe his hobby legacy would be better off. I say this obviously just to make a point. If he did have I don't want to say it, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, that's just the way the world works. It's like, what if John Lennon didn't get killed when he did? We don't know if he would have gone on to do something really stupid or to continue to be the legend that we all hold him to be. You just don't know what would have happened if somebody died or didn't die early. I don't know. Lots there. To the panelists, put up your hand if you'd like to jump in with anything, or I will go to some comments in the chat. Desert Shield Sniper says collecting needs to be fun. If it's just about safety of the ROI, stick with stocks. Okay, Josh is giving that a thumbs up. I gotta say though, all due respect to Desert Shield Sniper, a great supporter of mine. So I just want to say that I don't give two hoots about stocks. I care about the safety of the value of my cards, but I don't like. and it is fun. It is. So I guess it doesn't really apply to me because it's not just about the safety. If it is, stick with stocks. But I would just say that cards are fun. Stocks are not, unless they are to you. I shouldn't say that. I guess stocks can be fun to somebody, to some people. David, please. You're on mute. You're on mute. David, please.
So sorry about that. I have a question for you, Jeremy. Would you spend a significant amount of money on a card that is not a GOAT?
Ooh. Good question, David Chase. The significant amounts of money I've spent on cards have gone into really, like, anytime I've spent well into 5 figures, and by that I mean like put a 2 in front of it, it's either been Michael Jordan or Joe Jackson. That's it. Is Joe Jackson a GOAT? Probably not. Is the card a GOAT? It's a card GOAT. I don't know if he's a GOAT. So sort of, yeah, I'm a hybrid answer, but I can tell you when I consider, yeah, probably not, David. Probably not. I probably would not put a significant amount. Now, what significance? I will, to me, when I start thinking about the financial implications of a hobby, of a card expenditure, that kind of kicks into me. It changes. It really kicks in seriously, probably at about like as low as $250 to $500, but as high, like I can sometimes play with $1,000, but like $2,000 to $5,000, I'm definitely considering the financial implications, and I'm sure I've spent that kind of money on non-GOATs before. So I know I have. So I think I would, but if we're talking super, like I need to put a line, David, between significant and super significant. Super significant, no. I'm not spending 5 figures, I don't think, on a card, and definitely not 6, unless that I feel very safe and low volatility on that player's value.
How about if it's a player that you just really like, Jeremy? I mean, even if he's not a GOAT, why wouldn't, if it's the joy of collecting?
I don't think well, I've done it once. Teemu Selanne, I bought his Shield cards for more money than I wanted to because the joy of collecting, because I wanted those cards. And I didn't think I'd ever, I shouldn't say I didn't think I'd ever, I hoped I could recover that outlay. But yeah, I bought those cards without any assurance or great confidence that I would get my money or a return out of them. So I've done that, yes. But it's, the other thing I would say is that I don't just get enjoyment from spending a lot of money on cards. I get enjoyment out of cheap cards. So why do I need to spend a lot of money on a card? But if it's special, I guess I will, and I have. So,
some of that would also depend on what your GOAT threshold is. Where is that delineation? For me, like there's a few rando, like Kevon Looney. I didn't go crazy, but I picked up a few Kevon Looneys just because he's sort of the soul of like a couple championships for the Warriors, and but nothing too big, David. Nothing too big. But like, is Larry Doby a GOAT? I would say he is, but not everybody would. But in my book, he is. So I would, I wish, that you're not going to stop hearing about, how you got that Doby at the Ontario Card Show in 2024, was it? I don't know.
It was about a year ago. Yeah. Good point.
Okay, so Michael Rader says, why are GOATs safe? Likability, value, and demand. I think it's all, and all that. I think that those things are dependent somewhat on track record. Jeff says, market demand creates safety. To be a GOAT implies general consensus of popularity and excellence. That makes sense to me. Ivor here says, if LeBron, we did that one already. Skeppy says, that's the analysis I'm talking about, Chris. The new collector is battling to collect before they've even started. Some people are not quite, they know they want to get in, they don't know how, and they're asking questions. I think that's okay. Jim Define says, Chris, that's a chicken and egg discussion. Does the individual decisions create the consensus, or does the consensus determine the individual decision? I know that Chris is waiting for that. This is right up your alley, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, it's a great comment, and it's right. It's exactly Yeah, it's exactly the question to ask, and I don't know, but we can try and figure it out. Now, think about this. All right, this is a little experiment that I did on my Instagram about a month ago, and it kind of replicates the thought experiment that I was putting forth. Where like, what if we didn't know anything about the history of basketball, and then you let us study about it for a day, and then we each had to come back and say who the GOAT was? Well, I kind of did an experiment like this, but instead of with players, with cards. So, as we all know, I've been collecting Michael Jordan 1-of-1s, and some of these are not well known at all. They're from the 90s. 90s is not known for 1-of-1s. So many people have never seen or heard of these cards. And so after I had posted 4 different Michael Jordan 1-of-1s from the 90s to my Instagram page, I then ran a little poll. And I asked people very simply, which of these is your favorite? And I showed them 4 cards. And the cards were just, there's no point in me even telling you what they are, because very few would even know what they are in the first place. So I put the picture of it, I put the name of it, and I gave it like a 1-sentence tagline that sort of like gave you a little insight into what the historical significance of this card was. But you could look at it, you could see what the brand was, you could see the images, you could see the design, and you could see a little quick one-sentence summary. And wouldn't you know, when I put it to a poll, and remember, on Instagram, you don't get to see the poll results before you vote, which is very important. You do not get to know how the vote came down until after you voted, and then you get to see how the vote came down. And wouldn't you know, it was almost a perfectly even distribution. It was roughly each card got about 25% of the vote. How does it work out that way? What happens is when nobody has the guidance of popular opinion or a proof of a sales history, this one sells for way more than the other. When everybody had to make up their own mind without being able to rely on consensus or groupthink, the result was a fairly even split. And I bet that would be the result in a lot of situations if we had to completely think for ourselves. Now, with that said, I'm not advocating at all that we as collectors should go against the grain. We should blind ourselves to what other people think. We should completely have this independent judgment. I'm not saying that. I don't do that. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody either. What I'm saying is that this is part of understanding how demand, iconicity, consensus, understanding how those things take shape, understanding how they influence us. And then maybe a very astute collector might, after thinking about these things for a long time, identify areas, cards, players, sets that this has a ripe potential to be special, but for whatever reason, it's not on the radar right now. For whatever reason, it's not on the hobby's main stage right now. But in order to spot those hidden gems, you first have to completely understand how the status quo works and why it works that way.
Mm. Yeah. Well said, man. Good deep stuff. One of the things that you recently talked about on one of the Hojcasts, which really hit home for me. I think you were talking about your Power Deck 1-of-1 card, Chris, and we're talking about iconicity now, and what makes. We talk about what cards are iconic all the time, and oftentimes it's cards of GOATs become the most iconic cards, and it's early old cards are often very iconic or rare cards, but there's an area of the hobby that is ripe for being ahead of the curve, I think, and Chris distilled this down on a recent Hojcast. I think you were talking about the Power Deck, Chris, where he says that if you look at what makes a card iconic, it's going to be things like an iconic player. Maybe it's a 1-of-1. Maybe it's got it's from a recognizable brand. Maybe it's got a nice aesthetic. All the features that make a card iconic might exist in a card that is not iconic. And Chris was saying that, and you can correct me after, Chris, but I was just so taken aback by this. It really made me pause. When you bought that card, you bought that or acquired that Power Deck card. If it was an iconic card, you would have had to pay 30, 40, 50 times what you did. But because no one has claimed it as iconic, the hobby, there's no consensus around it being iconic, you got a card that features all the iconic aspects of a card without paying the iconic premium, I think is what you called it, the iconic premium. And to me, that's I think I was saying this to Joe or David the other day, very similar to me collecting low-grade, high eye appeal cards. I'm buying these amazing cards. They have all the features of a PSA 10, but I'm not paying the PSA 10 premium. I'm paying 5-10% of what that costs. I'm getting all the same features. It looks just as nice. Might not technically be as nice. Looks just as nice to me. Good enough. So that episode, Chris, can you just expand a bit more maybe on what that was? And I'd also like to direct people even to that timestamp of that episode, because it was so well, because you're an hour. Actually,
they do need the timestamp. Yeah,
it was short. That was a shorter episode. I think it was only a 90-minute episode for you, but that was such a eye opener for me.
Jeremy, I don't need to add anything. You summarized it perfectly. And it's yet another example on one of the themes of tonight's show, which is borrowing and being influenced by the good ideas of other people. I have no doubt that consuming the content of you, of Greg, of David, of Joe, of Josh, of everybody, that the concepts of finding value, the concepts of avoiding having to pay premiums like the great premium or the iconic premium. And some people love to pay those premiums, and that's completely fine. I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to say that their stuff is wrongly valued. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying that the structures of thought, it has to have been some spillover from me listening to, talking through these ideas and authentically engaging with them. I'm certain it was influential, but then I took the structure of thought and applied it to my own little lane, and I'm sure that there are people listening to everything that we're saying tonight, and they're developing it, and it's mutating, and it's taking forms that's going to shape the way they collect in ways that we couldn't even predict.
I love that. Don't collect what we're collecting unless you really want to. And this doesn't just go for me, Chris, the guys on the stage here. What I'm trying to get at is, if you hear something from anybody you're listening to and that approach makes sense to you, or you like that approach, find a way to apply it to your interest, to your lane. Don't apply it to what we like unless we like the same thing. Then go ahead and have at her. But if you, like Chris just said, he's taken in all this input, all this information from various content creators and somehow processed it, and then that's what he's done. He used it to find something that he thought he was maybe it's not because he's ahead of the curve, but he happened to be maybe ahead of the curve and could find this value that he didn't have to pay for. It's free value. You're getting all the iconic properties without paying the iconic premium. That's a wonderful place to be. I think that is ahead of the curve, and I think that's going to pay financial dividends, whether he cares or not in the future, for being that thoughtful about the process and what he likes. So the takeaway for the listeners and viewers is process these various pieces of information that you're hearing from us and others and apply it to what you like. Try to, if you care, maybe you don't care. Maybe you know what you're collecting, that's fine. But if you are looking for other ways to collect, like I always am, new things, budget, with the budget in mind, that's a great thing, great way to approach this hobby, I think. So I love that you brought that back to that, Chris. And I loved that episode, and that portion of it specifically was an epiphany in a way. And it was validating for me as well, because I've not just in finding like a one of one value or an under a low grade high eye appeal card, but even there are other. It's like we always want to go back in time, with hindsight, right? But there's something right now that is going to pop, and there's many things right now that no one is really focusing on that are going to pop in the future, and maybe you're onto it if you care about being onto something that could pop in the future.
Yeah, to that point, there was some viral thing on social media last week. I don't remember who said it. I don't remember it exactly, but the paraphrase will suffice. The idea was this. The idea was that there is a great competitive advantage among people in entrepreneurial spaces who can withstand being like basically booed and criticized by their peers in the crowd for the longest time. And that's a dangerous strain of thought, because what if you're just wildly wrong and people are actually correctly criticizing you, and you just sort of like a bull rushing, you just don't listen at all, and you should have been listening. But for the person who does have the vision, for the person who has put their finger on something, whether they had intuition or just got lucky, but there's a big reward on the other side for the people who can have a bold point of view, and even if people hate it, even if people disagree with it, even if people don't like it, and even if that withstands for years and years and years, to be the person who can withstand that and to still come out on the other side, if the idea proves to be fruitful, that almost that success in markets and business and things like that, that success selects for that particular personality type.
Yeah, it can be very challenging to be the contrarian against a massive amount of people. That can be it can be intimidating, and it's very difficult to do that for people. So if you are a visionary and you feel very passionate about something, hopefully for you that you're right and you gain some benefits, whether they're mental, financial, whatever. Hopefully that happens for you, because it can pay off in the long run, both mentally and financially, I suppose, or one or the other. Couple comments here. Skeppy here said that Team Musolani is no GOAT, and Jay Lee would likely put significant money for the right card, which I read after I gave that exact example. So Skeppy knows me better than I know myself. Hobby Champs here said no one's going to care about the late career LeBron James 10 years after his career is over. They're going to remember his prime and see all of his insane all-time stats. I think there's truth to that. I do think there's truth to that. And Jim here says that that's old-fashioned critical thinking. We need to bring more of that back. Absolutely. Okay. What does Jim here says? Great leaders want people around them that have the courage to disagree and speak their mind. Yeah, right on. Right. And you know what? We see that here on this show from Chris. Chris loves being challenged a lot of times. I like it. I don't like it as much as Chris does, but I like it too. I'm willing to take it and talk about it and even change my mind on things. Chris loves that challenge, though. We just know, hey, Chris C with a $5 contribution says, awesome discussion. When will there be a Yoda Hoge action figure with rabbit hole thesaurus? Massive marketing potential. Chrissy, I will buy a dozen of those. Absolutely. Because the potential isn't just there for marketing. The future value potential is huge. Yes, Chris.
Listen to the crowd on this one. Bad idea. Put that one back to the drawing board. Shelve that one. Trash that one. Trash that idea. Hey, but he made a nice contribution, bought a cup of coffee for the team here, and we're grateful for that. Thank you, Chris C. Okay, Joe, David, Josh, any comments? We're in that wrap-up stage here. Anything else any of you want to talk about? Are we ready to wrap this up? I don't want to prematurely end the show if there's more things on your mind. So, David, how are you feeling? You got anything you want to raise?
I mean, I always have things that I could raise, but I mean, if everybody's getting tired, I don't need to raise anything.
We need something for the hangover, by the way.
I'll ask. I feel like this is a very basic kind of a fast question for people,
Sure.
And it brings Josh into the conversation, which I also like. Josh, when you texted me from the Toronto Expo, and you sent me a photo of the 1990 Leaf Frank Thomas card, and you wrote the number 118 below it. Tell me about that. What was that you
I have 100. I have 118 copies of that card.
And so you have 118 raw copies of that card?
I mean, mostly, yeah. If I buy a graded one, I'll crack it out and then keep it raw. So I have 118 raw copies.
And when you buy a card like that, and I'm going to bring this to the panel in a second, but when you buy a card like that, what's the joy you get? Is it from buying it? Is it from looking at them all together? Give us a little bit of where your passion lies.
My favorite card of all time. I remember rifling through packs looking for that one in the John Olerud and the Sammy Sosa in a White Sox uniform. So when you pull it up, you thought you were getting Frank, you're getting Sammy Sosa. It's a big disappointment. I just love that card. It's my favorite card of all time. It's a great jersey. And I just like having as many as I can get. They're cheap. It's like $5-10 a piece. So just pick one up at every show. I'll probably get 1, 2, or 10. I think I bought 20 at once. So that's where
So you would be happy if you had 1,000 of them?
I would be happy with that. Yes.
Cool. So this is one of these kind of things. I'm going to bring it kind of a little bit back to what we were all talking about. I love sometimes the eccentric way that we collect which ends up kind of for me now when I think of a 1990 Leaf Frank Thomas card, I'm going to think of Josh, right?
I'm
And
sorry.
I love that I mean, no, that it makes me love the way you collect. And I feel like a lot of times when you're going through this journey, everybody kind of goes on an individual lane that's unlike all their other peers. And I love that. And I'm going to give you some example of some YouTubers if you guys could maybe think of one for yourself. Like Greg, he collects Matt Manning cards, he was a teacher, and this was one of his students, and he has refractors and all of these cards. And he's probably the only person in the world that goes for those kind of cards. Mike Petty goes for home run derby cards, and he has the most massive collection of them. I've never even seen a home run derby card until I saw Mike Petty's, and he has 1 million of them. Tony has Larry Doby signed cards. Those are kind of off the beaten path, not the Jackie ones. Darren has a Joe DiMaggio run where I haven't seen 90% of those cards ever. And, so again, these are just kind of the cards that are individual that separate you from a lot of your peers. Do you guys have something that you think represents you like that?
Interesting question. I think you're kind of quoting some very obscure type of players and themes there, whereas I think about my friends on the screen here, and I know a bit about what they collect, and I think about myself as well, David, and I don't have a player that I collect except for the players I collect because I grew up with them or whatever. So no, I don't think I do. I don't think I do have that in that eccentric sort of way. I don't collect that way, really. I don't have any interest in having 118 copies of a card, but I am proud to say, I think that 118th copy came from me at the show. Did it? Yes, it did. My buddy Jesse here, Double O Cards guy, says, I own none of them, looking for one. I set up with him the next week at a show. He almost could have had mine, but you took it ahead of him. You snaked it from him there, not knowing, of course. So I don't have a great answer to that, David. Let's go to Joe. Do you?
I mean, not so much recently. I think I used to go pretty deep into, the 70s Oakland A's, Joe Rudy, Campy Campaneris. But then, you check those off. More recently, I mentioned, Kevon Looney. There might be a few other, Warriors that are like fringe, Leonardo Barbosa, something like that. But I like the idea, and it's certainly something that could still happen.
Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not quite that interesting. I wish I was, and it inspires me. And I'm just sitting here oh my God, what could I do to do something cool like this? And I do have these because of what an old bump on the log I am. I've accumulated Carvin's Allen and Ginter card. I have Jeremy's. I think I have several cards of Jeremy. I have cards of John Newman. I have cards of Jesse Sports Boy from Sports Cards Nonsense made a card. I've cards of Victor Roman. I probably have actually quite an extensive PC of content creators. I keep them all.
Slabstrong, Tim?
I don't have his. His is too official. His actually came out in a real product. I'm talking about the ones that are straight off the grindstone. I don't even know if that makes sense. The ones that were made by the creator for the hobby. Tim would need to give me one for me to get Tim's, and maybe he will now.
I'm just pulling out of my binder here, one of my PC binders.
Yeah,
cards that are of creators and that kind of thing.
Nice.
All of these are not mainstream, and they're all there's Carvin's card right there from Alan.
Yeah, baby.
There's Ken Golden's card inscribed to me. Wax Stat, my buddy Al Terwell.
Nice.
The Penny Sleever.
Yeah.
The Jordan card. This is Dave Denzel's card up there.
Oh, I saw you had the Ken Golden.
Yeah.
I think that's the first one, and he signed those.
Oh, he signed this. I don't know if he says to Jeremy, my favorite podcast host.
He put inscriptions too.
He inscribed it for me. A couple of Brian Gray cards right there, autographed. bullpen LA card, just a whole bunch of different ones. More over here. My buddy Amit made a Lemieux rookie with his face on it. There's the original the Fat Packs podcast with Eric. I've had this one for over 10 years. Some buddies, some cards I get at the YouTube get together at the National. Here's another page. Look, there's Tony. TJ is online right there. There's Victor Roman Sr.'s card right there. There's Danny Black and John Newman right there.
Amazing.
Hey, you just meant there's Jesse Gibson.
Yeah,
Right
there it is.
There it is. I got
Amazing.
that card. There's there's with a Wade Boggs fan, John Reichert at the bottom. I got more. There's Sammy Thunder in the middle right there. There's Iconic Al right there. There's the brothers, the German brothers, who wear the glove.
Oh, Kiki, yeah.
Kiki, there's Kiki. Hey, Chris, you might recognize those. Some of those. Those are the card ladder cards you guys gave out at the. You guys gave those out at the National a couple years ago. There's Mike Petty's Kaboom.
Nice.
There's the Floor Collectors card right there. There's Blake Grice, of the Blake Show. Dave Slipka. I got Stukes from our chat right there. There's Stukes.
Nice.
I forget what that honus. And then this one might be a bit more controversial, but these were the what were they called? The Wolf Pack. Anybody remember that guy right in the middle?
Nice.
There's the Wolf Pack cards, and then these were given out at a Beckett Industry Summit one year. There's Polly's Pies. There's some more. Like I have several pages of this type of. It's kind of fun. That stuff's fun. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I have a few more I'm going to put in there.
That might be one of the most extensive hobby content collections that exists.
I love it. To me, this is great. It's got a home in my collection.
Yeah,
and there, it's in a. I have 5 binders that are like, this one that came out of this binder here with a bunch of other, just cards. Like I don't even know what just a bunch of cards I've collected. So it's fun stuff. I collect hobby people cards.
Yeah.
You get a place in you give me one you get a place in my binder.
That's amazing. Can I give a shout out? David said, try and think of a YouTube creator. One immediately did come to mind for me. Unfortunately, David didn't name him. So I can name him. It's Shane, Shoebox Legends. He does these videos on the Topps archives, like one-of-ones and buybacks. And every time he talks about one in a video, I immediately start looking them up. I haven't bought one yet. I haven't taken the plunge, but his passion for them is very contagious. When I think of his collection, that's one of the things that I think about. I think he's really identified a very special and cool type of card with us.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's not the first time Shane has been called out in this episode. I think Brett might have mentioned him earlier as well. He gets mentioned a lot. Greg says, I can't believe Jeremy doesn't have a Captain Midlife card. I can't believe it either, Greg. I'll be watching the mailbox for that. Absolutely. Skeppy here said, today's collector has no idea how big that 1990 Leaf Frank Thomas was. People stepped right over 89 Upper Deck Griffies to get a big hurt. Oh, man. Skeppy's right. I lived through it. I remember exactly. I remember going to card shows in 1990 and couldn't wait to buy that card for $80. I think I sold mine to you, Josh, for 10 last week.
Yeah, you drove a hard bargain, but yes.
I drove a hard bargain. I don't do any card show deals for under $10. It's $10 minimum, whatever it is.
I get it.
Whatever it is, right? Skeppy says, wait, are you saying you have a binder full of cards you enjoy that aren't really worth anything? That's crazy. I got 5 of those binders, Skeppy. 5 binders full of cards that aren't worth anything. Or if they are, I don't know it, but I love them. Love them. That's the beauty of the hobby. We can enjoy it in so many different ways. All right, are we done? Are we good to wrap this one up, fellas? David, thanks for that. Oh, Josh, you got something?
No, I can go for another 2 hours, whatever you want. I'm good.
We're at 3. We're coming up on 3.5 hours, so we will wrap this up. Joe Poirot has left the camera on, but left the screen. I'd love for Joe to come back for the ending of the episode. So, but we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank the guys from Sports Card Clubhouse, Greg, Midlife, Mike, Junk Wax Hero, Adam from Splendid, for recruiting me onto the team. And I'm excited to start that journey. Not much is going to change around here on Sports Cards Live. I want to thank David Chase for helping to facilitate that, just being the voice of reason. David Chase is the most powerful broker in the hobby. David Chase is the man pulling the strings behind the scene.
Oh
I'm
God.
half kidding, but it was a lot of fun to just the last couple days, not even 2 days. So thank you to them, guys. These episodes are available on podcast. Keep that in mind, and watch out for The Hangover, which will be debuting on the Sports Card Clubhouse platforms, both the YouTube channel and the podcast. Probably this Wednesday will be the episode 1. It'll be me and David Chase, and all you guys on the screen right now are invited to be a part of these episodes. By the way, it's Sports Cards Live, The Hangover. If you're available, because it's going to be during business hours, so I will send you guys the link. You're welcome to drop in. It's not a live stream. You'll be welcome to drop in and join the discussion if you'd like, but no pressure to do so. But it is open because it is a Sports Cards Live themed piece of content that will live on the Sports Card Clubhouse platforms. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it so much. Yankees fan has a Mr. Mint card from back in the day. He was the first one I saw who did it. Thank you, Bill Betts. Appreciate that. Thank you, Laura, for sticking with us again on a Saturday night. Much appreciated. I want to also thank Brett McGrath for joining us earlier tonight. If you're not listening to Stacking Slabs, are you even in the hobby? Listen to Stacking Slabs, some of the finest content out there. Thank you to Joe, Chris, David, Josh. Guys, with that, here on. Thank you, Jim Define says you can only watch The Hangover once and you have to delete the evidence. Attaboy. Exactly. Here on May the 16th, 2026, this episode of Sports Cards Live is now
Over.
And with that, good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.